Hey guys, Matt Goodwin, EliteFTS.com. Just doing a little spot here to let you guys know the annual equipment sale will be starting this Thursday, November 16th. It'll run through November 23rd. That's it. Those are the dates. Nothing extra. We're going to do 15% off all the equipment. Contact me directly, Nate Harvey, Chris Bartle. Check the link below. You can reach us directly. You can call, you can email, you can text message, hit us on Instagram, hit us on Facebook. We're here to help you guys out. So if you see something you get stuck in the cart, give us a call. Remember, November 16th through the 23rd.
One of the best ways that you can support the podcast and your training is to join the crew. When you join the crew, you get an extra crew cast podcast every single month. You also get access to our Discord, which has a training Q&A with Team Elite FTS members. You get form checks. You can upload any of your training footage and have your lifts diagnosed, sometimes within minutes, by multiple people. Access to close to 30 different ebooks, training logs, and first sign up access to our weekend training retreats, train your ass off, and other events that we do. Biggest takeaways from that though, what people enjoy the most and get the most out of is the training Q&A and the form checks, as well as the extra podcast. Hey guys, I'm back in the gym with another limited edition apparel drop. This is the new Live, Learn, Pass On shirt. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about our cambered grip American cable attachment. This attachment has 4 grips and it's cambered. So when you flip it, it actually becomes 8 grips. And if you turn it upside down, there's actually 16. This is one of our most used cable attachments out in the gym. Even got that full range of motion. We got a second limited edition drop this month as well. Head over to EliteFTS.com, pick up the shirt, pick up the cable attachments, and we'll see you next time.
Matt with EliteFTS here at the Armory in Columbus, Ohio. This is a new build, beautiful facility. Should be opening up around November 1st, 2023. Looking at the posterior chain developer, signature version. It's going to have the logo panels on there. Reverse hypers, you can do glute ham raiser, back raise, any kind of posterior chain movement you want to do on this piece. This is really good. The best thing about this, so you just step down on the release, adjust it. So it makes it really easy to adjust these, no pop pins or anything of those sorts. So this is the signature posterior chain developer by EliteFTS.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by EliteFTS.com. Founded in 1998 with the primary aim to live, learn, and pass on. Please help EliteFTS support this mission by smashing the like button, leaving a comment, sharing with a friend, and thinking of us for your training needs. If you can put it in a gym bag or load weights on it, EliteFTS has it.
What's going on? I'm Dave Tate. We are broadcasting from the middle of the Elite FTS weight room, where the underground still thrives and you're part of the crew. It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. All right, what's up, guys? We're back with another episode of Table Talk. Today, my guest is Logan Varner. His best lifts are 880, 535, 205. In 2022, you were ranked in the top 5. So far this year, you're in the top 10. You're the coach of Valhalla Power Club. Is that right? Or is it Powerlifting Club?
Power Club.
Power Club. And coaching and lifting both. Predominantly, lifting is your number one priority, which we're going to talk about a little bit. But when I put you out, when I put a call out, it was a while ago, 6 months ago, whenever it was, for guests to be on the podcast, your name came up a lot, right? Yeah. So that's why I wanted to bring you in and talk to you, is because there's a whole lot of people that kind of want to know your story, or like your story and want other people to know about it. Yeah. So that's just kind of where we're going to jump off from there. Where I want to start is when I like to kind of probe back into what your athletic background is, because genetics obviously still play a role, as we move forward through a lifting career. But early in an athlete's developmental stages, before teenagers, they develop strength, endurance, explosive strength, visual acuity, and all those other things. So when you're pre-high school, what sports were you involved in?
Played baseball from really little. Played that all the way up through high school. I used to do a lot of cross country. My parents would have me do triathlons and stuff, and junior high, and the little mini triathlons and stuff. But I was always extremely active, and But baseball was the big one, and I did that religiously for a long time.
All the way through high school?
Yeah.
What-
I think my senior year, I quit playing baseball, but all the way
What
up through
position?
pitched.
You pitched?
Yeah. I was a pitcher, and eventually I ended up hurting my elbow towards the end of my career, and just DH'd. So I was a really good hitter and pitcher.
And you're in Houston now. Is that where you've always been?
Yeah.
So born and raised?
Yeah. I was born in North Carolina, but I moved down when I was like 1. And so I was just raised in Houston.
During that time, what did your training look like? Obviously, it's usually nothing when you're in youth athletics because you're just going from one sport to the next sport to the next sport. At what point did either a strength coach, well, it's Texas, so there's probably a strength coach. But at what point did a strength coach start to introduce strength and conditioning to your training?
Man, when we were in junior high, so like 7th grade, we started in the weight room. I don't think we had any structure at that point, but they were having us in there as like our PE credit, right? We were lifting weights and stuff. And so that was the first introduction to weights that I got, was in about 7th grade.
What did the weight room look like? Because when we're talking Texas, it's a different.
So this one was not a good one. It was a piece of shit. It was in the upstairs of something, right? They had hand-me-down stuff. But then, when we went to my high school, my freshman year, they had a full decked out weight room. I mean, power racks all the way across. They had a real strength and conditioning coach that was in there, and it was legit.
Now, you were wrestling and playing football too?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question would be, with the strength and conditioning coach, did they give a shit about baseball, or was it all focused on football, basketball, and wrestling?
The guy they brought in, and you might know him, his name is David Hawthorne, but his Instagram is Sticks and Stones. He makes he came out with the stone molds during COVID for people to make weights. And so he was our strength and conditioning coach. And he had everything set up for baseball specific. He had things set up for volleyball specific, for football specific. He was a lot better than a lot of the strength and conditioning coaches that you see out there. He knew what he was talking about and how to implement it for each sport.
Were you stronger than everybody else after you started training in high school?
Man, I started training not for a sport, but because this guy beat me on a dip contest in 7th grade. He did more dips than me, and it ate me alive.
How many did he do?
He did like 22 and I did like 13. And so I was like livid, it's something about it. It killed me. And I signed up for a gym the next day and started training and stuff. Once I started, I pretty quickly got stronger than everybody in my age, in my grade and stuff.
So what was your strength in high school? Just on some of the major lifts, squat, bench.
Okay, yeah.
Were you even deadlifting at that point?
We weren't deadlifting at all.
Yeah.
No deadlifts. I was, at the time, we didn't max out, right? So in football, we would do rep maxes. This was kind of before they brought in the strength coach, but I can remember doing, I think like 215 or 235 squat for like 30 reps or something. And they finally were just like, shut it down.
Yeah.
Bench, I got up to around 315 to 350 by the time I graduated. And like I said, no deadlifts. So
what was your body weight?
My junior year, I was 205. I played linebacker. And then my senior year, they changed the defense up to where I was just straight inside backer, right? So we had 3, and I was right in the middle. So I bulked up to about 235 then.
And what were you wrestling at?
Wrestling. So when I wrestled, I thought I was going to cut, right? So I dropped down to 160 pounds, and it ended up not being something to, with the way that the weight classes were and the people we had on the team, I ended up having to wrestle in 205. So I could get my ass kicked until I gained the weight back. But I bulked back up to around 200.
And then at what point did powerlifting come into your life?
So I graduated high school, and I being an athlete and competitive and stuff, I wanted something that I could do to compete at still. throughout baseball, throughout football, I fell in love with the training for that more so than the sport.
Can you remember what point in time that happened?
Yeah. I mean, when I was, it was definitely in baseball, right around sophomore year. I was just getting really big and strong, and it was kind of having an effect on my, my sport, because I was, worrying about putting on muscle versus being a better pitcher and stuff. And so that's when I kind of realized, like, okay, I really like this. I like training for the sport, but I really like the lifting weights aspect, and I liked being bigger and stronger. And so as soon as I graduated, I just kept going and just kept trying to get bigger and stronger. And I remember a 500-pound deadlift is what I wanted to do that first year I graduated. And so yeah, that's kind of I graduated, got that 500-pound deadlift. That was the first time where I was training for a lift, right? To increase the deadlift.
I assume you knew powerlifting. Did your high school have powerlifting?
So we did not. We were one of the schools, and we were
the only one in Texas did not.
Yeah. We were a 4A, moved to 5A, and we did not have powerlifting. A couple of the schools around us did, the little bit bigger ones. And it's all geared powerlifting down in Texas. So we did not have that, but my strength and conditioning coach, when he came in, he was a strongman competitor. And so he brought in his log and all this crazy shit. And it's like, man, that sounds cool. I kind of want to do that. And so from there, I signed up and did a couple strongman competitions. And that's what started the strength training, for
How'd those go?
Oh, horrible. I did really bad.
Yeah.
I was very strong. I was a lot of times stronger than the people I was competing against. I just could not get the events down, right? And it's, I just didn't practice them. I'd show up and think that I could just be stronger and win. And, I couldn't.
What kind of gym were you training at the time?
Oh, just 24-hour fitness, just making it work.
Yeah. So they don't have like
Yeah,
and shit.
we used to do stones. We would like make a landmine attachment and put 5 bumper plates on the end of the barbell and just pick it up like that, and just kind of rig stuff up. But
so at what point then did you think I need to find a gym that kind of specializes in this shit?
So I ended up from there. There was a gym down the street called the Warehouse Gym, and at the time they had World's Strongest Man competitors training there, like Josh Thigpen. I think Travis Ortmeyer was down there for a little while. This was where everybody was.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the guys there, he had torn both of his adductors. And so he was at 24-hour fitness just fooling around. And he's like, man, you need to get out of here. You need to go to a real gym. And I remember I was like, okay. So I pulled up there 3 times and looked in, and I was like, shit, I can't go in there. And I left. And
why? I mean, what intimidated you?
Oh, it was just intimidating. I felt like I didn't belong or earn my spot in a gym like that around those people, which wasn't the case. They were all super nice. And, but it was just kind of this preconceived thought that I had, I wanted to earn my way into that gym.
How did you think you were going to do that though?
I don't know. I thought I could, if I felt like I could hit a respectable number, that I could go in there and hang with some of the guys in there. I thought, okay, that's how I would do it.
So what got you to go in that 3rd time?
I just said, fuck it, and went in. And, I remember deadlifting. I remember squatting. I put on, what was it? I think I did 635 a squat. And at the time that was huge for me. And I remember doing it, and everybody in the gym, is yelling at me. And this was the first experience I've had of anybody giving a shit about what you're doing, first of all, but yelling at you in a gym, commercial gyms, you're not going to have that. And I remember like, man, this is fucking cool. And I hit the squat, and I went over to the biggest, strongest guy there at the time. And I was like, hey man, what'd you think of that squat? And he just looked at it and he said, it was high, and then turned around. That's all he said. And I was like, man, yeah, this is the type of place that I need to be training at.
So what happened after that, right? So you do that, then you come in the next time.
Yeah. And then, then I just started coming in there. I I started coming in the evenings, and I met up with some guys. They were powerlifting as well. They were kind of around my strength level, and we just started training together. He had a key to the gym, so we trained like at 9 o'clock at night when nobody else was in there except us 6 guys. We'd open the doors and have the garage playing or the music playing, and that was kind of where the powerlifting started, right? And we were training in a crew without really knowing what we were doing. But we were training hard, and we were training in a crew, and we fell in love with it.
Were you working at the time?
Yeah, I was working at GNC supplement shop, making like $7, you know, and they would give us the expired supplements. So I'd go put them in the trash can, and then I'd call my training partners, be like, "Hey, come pick these up," you know, and then we'd get to the gym and spread them all out amongst each other. And so, yeah, but that's how the crew that we have now kind of started, and how the whole powerlifting thing started with us.
In that gym. So at what point did it shift to powerlifting? Because there were strongman competitors there, and that's kind of what brought you there.
Yeah.
So when did that change happen?
So from there, I actually went to, decided to go to university. I went to Stephen F. Austin. It's a college in Nacogdoches. And so I go there for 2 years, and I'm just training in the rec center, and I'm following the cube method at the time from Brandon Lilly. And, you know, my only focus was I want my squat, bench, and deadlift to be stronger, you know, and the classes that I picked them so that I could train at the time that I wanted to train at. And, you know, I made sure everything that I did was based around getting my squat, bench, and deadlift up at university. And so I'm deadlifting on these hexagon plates and doing block pulls off stacked 45s. And, but yeah, that's when I'm doing the Q method. I'm just trying to get those stronger, and did that for 2 years.
What were you, because it's just general shit. You take the first 2 years, but what was your intent? What did you want to major in?
So I went in doing nursing. I didn't want to be a nurse, but I didn't want to be anything, you know? It's like, I don't fucking know what I want to do. I just wanted to work out.
No, I know how that goes.
You know, I was like, what do I, so that I was taking all the prereqs, obviously, and a couple of the classes set me up to get into the nursing program. And then after 2 years of the basics, I was like, man, I just did not know what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a nurse. And so I didn't want to go through that. I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I didn't want to waste my time or money or my parents' money and, you know, go through classes that I didn't feel like I wanted to do or needed to do. And so that's when I came home and again got another job at GNC, and we trained with the same crew again. And then I actually went back a second time. I did a year there, and with the kinesiology focus. And then, after that, again, I was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work out. Well, everybody does, right? But I hadn't found anything that I wanted to get up in the morning and go do. And I had to come to the realization that most people don't wake up every day and go do the job they want to do. They do the job they have to do, right? And so I went home after that third year of college, and I was like, okay, here's the prereqs I have. What can I get into? And I found respiratory therapy and went to the community college, did 2 years of that. And throughout that is when I was really heavy into powerlifting, because I could just focus on school and focus on lifting weights.
So the respiratory therapy was like the default.
It was
like the easiest way.
Yeah, it was the only job that I could get into the program at that exact time. I knew I could come out and have an immediate job, and I could make enough money to do what I needed to do.
And then all your post credits would transfer. For that.
And so I was able to just get into the program right away, 2 years. And so it wasn't nothing I wanted to do. It was just like, shit, I got to do something.
No, my story is very similar to that, because all through my time in college, you know, after my first year was taking remedial courses I should have taken in high school, but didn't take because I was a good athlete. So I took business math instead of algebra, you know, so all these other things. And so my first year is a wash because none of the credits counted. Right. And then I transferred to another university and flunked out the first semester. And then after that, didn't want to retake those courses because you're out for good. Yeah. And then just took whatever. I'd walk through the bookstore, you know, the university bookstore, and find books that were interesting, and only took those. And then 3 years later, I have enough credit hours to graduate, but I don't know what in. Right. And I was one class away from sociology. Okay. Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, what the fuck am I going to do with this? Be a census taker? What's this going to do? But I didn't care. Same story. Yeah. Because all I gave a fuck about was the training, the powerlifting, and all the other stuff. So this was just kind of what I was doing on the side, is somewhat of a backup, but didn't really think about what the backup would actually be. And then instead of going that route, I just said, fuck, because everybody was telling me to not go into strength related stuff because there's no career in that. And things are different today than back then. Just said, fuck it, I'm going to go and create an individual program with a counselor in strength and conditioning and nutrition and go through that route. But it's funny to me how many people have this same kind of story to where it's like, fuck, I got 3 years into this. I don't know what it's going to be. So let's just see where it could be. And then that's what it ends up. Yeah. So how much longer did you have to go to school to be able to finish with the respiratory therapy?
So I had 3 years of prereqs from the university, and then the actual respiratory program after the prereqs was 2 years, with no like breaks, right? So it was, I think 3 semesters and then 3 semesters or 4 semesters, whatever it was. It was straight through. So we didn't have a summer off or anything. So yeah, it was 2 full years.
Now, were you competing in powerlifting at this time?
Yeah. So I was competing before I got into the program and stuff. Okay. I did my first meet was while I was at SFA. And I just signed up. I was like, okay, well, here's my strength. Here's what I'm doing. I need to go do a fucking meet, and got online. I didn't really know where to find them or what to do. And I saw there was an APA meet in McAllen. I didn't even know where the fuck that was at the time. And so I signed up, and I'm putting it on the maps. I'm like, oh, it's 8 hours towards Mexico. So, and I didn't have anything. I didn't know what I was doing. I tested my bench opener like 3 days out. You know, I was like, okay, well, I know I can hit that. And I drove down there in my Mazda on spare tires and showed up, and I won the thing and had a fucking blast. And so that was the first taste of it. And I was like, man, this is what I want to do.
So walk me through that, right? So you sign up for the meet, and after you get there
so I signed up for the meet, and I called my buddy who back home, and I was like, hey, I'm doing this meet, you know, I don't have anyone to come with me. You want to come? And he was like, yeah. So drove from Nacogdoches to Houston, picked him up, drove all the way to McAllen, and I get there, and I'm in the weigh-ins, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, man, these are some monsters in here. You know, I had hair at the time. So I was like, man, everybody's bald and bearded and just fucking huge. And it was intimidating.
Yeah. You 275 at that time?
I was 275, but I was weighing like 245 or 248, you know, I was just like, fuck it. And so, I signed up, and then it was in an auditorium, and it had like a
gym,
it was like where they would do plays, I guess.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
That's kind of weird.
You're standing, you've got to walk up these things, and they had one rack, and it was a combo rack, and I've never used one. And they didn't have enough spotters. So my buddy who was supposed to like help me and record me, he ended up having a spot and load. And I think there was about 20, 25 of us. And I picked some openers that I knew I could hit because I just did them 3 days before. Yeah. And did those, and I walked up to the tent board, and I'm like, well, we'll try that. Got it. And I ended up going 9 for 9 and having a fucking blast. And I hit some PRs like on a deadlift, and it was as soon as I was done, I was like, man, this is, and I won the, which helped, but I was like, man, this is, I love this, this is what I want to do.
So what changed after that then moving forward?
Everything. I mean, everything revolved around that feeling of being stronger than everybody else in the room, but also just doing shit that I hadn't done before as far weight wise, it was the best feeling in the world for me. And so, yeah, as soon as I got back, I was hooked. I just started continuing with the programming, like, trying cube method.
So was this 2017? What year was this?
Yeah, I think 2016 or 2017. And this was, we had, I think it was Powerlifting Watch, or it wasn't open powerlifting.
Yeah.
We had to pay. We submitted our thing through a check to get into to where you could see the rankings and stuff. And from the very beginning, I wanted to get as high up on those rankings as I could. I wanted to win the competitions and stuff, but I really wanted to just get as high up those as I could.
I should know this, but were they dividing those rankings at the time, or was it just all in one? Like,
they were dividing it. So they were dividing it by weight class. I don't know if they were dividing raw.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking. I know weight
reps.
class was divided, but I don't know if the categories were divided.
I know they had, raw versus multiplying gear. I don't know if the sleeves and the wraps were separated at that point yet.
Yeah. I
think wraps was still kind of what everybody was doing. So, but yeah, I just really wanted to get up that list. And so I turned all my focus into that. Signed up for another meet, and the same thing, just trained and did really well in it. And
did you change the training crew that you were with? Did you change gyms? Did any of that change?
So when I came back and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to respiratory school. We started training at the warehouse gym full time. And it was 4 of us, and we trained every single night. We did the same workouts. That's where we realized that what we were doing was different than kind of what everybody else was doing, as far as training in a crew and doing the same workouts and lifting the same, nobody else around us was really doing that anymore.
What were they doing?
They were training by themselves.
Okay.
Yeah. They were training by themselves or following a different program, or, we were the only ones that were like, hey, we're all going to train at 9 p.m. and we're squatting. And whereas everybody else at the time was kind of just, they were just doing their own thing, still getting strong and still doing powerlifting, but it was, we had something special training together, and
why 9 p.m.? Because if that's your number one priority and you're building all your life around that, why 9 p.m.? I would think like 10:30.
Yeah. It was actually horrible training at 9 p.m., but at the time I had class from 8 a.m. to, we'd go anywhere from 4 to 6 p.m. sometimes. And so 9 p.m. was enough time for me to eat and then get to the gym, and then we'd go home and I'd sleep for a couple hours and then wake up. And we had clinicals and stuff at the time. So that's the time that we all could train. And a lot of them kind of made sacrifices so that I could train at 9 p.m. with them, They didn't have to train at 9, but they wanted to maintain the crew. And so that's kind of what we did.
So how many days a week were you guys training?
4. Yeah. We would do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday.
All right. So walk me through that. Mondays, squat.
At the time it was Monday was squat, Wednesday was bench, Friday was lower body, and then Saturday was upper body. And we were running, I think at the time it was like a Lillibridge method, where we would work up to a top set of 5 on squats, and then accessories, and then same thing on bench, and then lower body on Friday, accessories on Saturday, and then the next week was a deadlift.
Yeah.
And so we would just do that for just over and over and over. Every 10 weeks, we just increase the weight and just keep going.
And I assume it was working for everybody there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now for yourself, did that drop your squat frequency?
Yeah. And then I actually even got to where, I was only squatting twice. I was squatting twice a month and deadlifting twice a month. And still I was really, really strong. I got up to 1900 plus total just doing that with no real, science or thought behind it. I would just, okay, I want to squat this 10 weeks from now. I need to start here on my fives and then just go up.
So you would back it down. Now, if this is what you wanted to squat, how are you basing what that number was?
So I was, a little different, whereas the guys I was with, they always had a little bit more ambitious goals with their numbers. And I was more of like a realistic guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be happy with a 10 to 15 pound increase every 10 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I squatted 600 at the end of this training cycle, I'd be happy with 610, 615. And so I would just up it 10 pounds on the first little cycle. And if I upped everything by 10 pounds, by the end, I was 10 pounds stronger.
So you were backing it from that meet by 10 pounds each week?
Yeah.
Right. So when you started, what rep range did you start at?
I think it was 5s or 8s, something higher.
Yeah.
That we could go like 8, 6, 4, 2 or something like that. Or sometimes, maybe we started at 10 and it would go 10, 8, 6, 4, and
Mm-hmm.
just depending on how far out we were, what was going on. And that was before a lot of the injuries kind of started piling up. So I could just lay out 10 weeks and nothing's going to happen. I'll just go with it.
Now, did you change that because injuries did start to pile on?
No, I think I did that. I got up to, a 1,900 pound total with that. And then I tore my hamstring really, really bad. And it was my first real injury, and I didn't know what to do. So the next day I was like, okay, well, let's see what I can deadlift. So I threw 500 pounds on it, and I'm like, well, it feels like shit, but I can do it. And so I was like, all right, well, I'll just keep training. I trained like normal. I had a meet I was signed up for, and I just keep tearing it every like 3 weeks because I wasn't letting it heal. You know, I'd go up to squat and I get up to like 735, and it would just tear again, and I just keep doing it. And so I ended up doing the meet, and I only got my openers on squat and retore it. I hit a bench PR, so I was actually happy for the day.
Yeah.
And then I only got my opener deadlift. But after that, my total dropped 100 something pounds from that meet. And I was like, okay, I got to do something. Because at the time, I think the accessories had kind of dropped off. We would work up to the top sets and then just fuck around and go home,
Mm-hmm.
And then when that injury happened, I was like, okay, I got to kind of change some stuff. And from there, I ran the 5th set protocol because it was lighter weight, working around 80% at the time or 78. And I was pushing the reps versus having to load up weight, which is what I needed because I wasn't doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And that allowed me to train hard, still be in the gym and progress without, like I said, loading up 600-700 pounds each time.
Now, how many other people were part of this crew?
So there was 1, 2, 3, 4. At that time, we had 5 or 6 of us.
Did they all pivot with you?
No. So they all continued to run kind of the similar things that they were running.
Yeah.
And then that was when I kind of made the shift to try that 5th set. And I ended up totaling 2K at that meet, my first 2K total. And immediately after that, I came home and started Conjugate the next training cycle. And so that's where that started.
So with that crew, it was still squat day bench.
Yeah.
So all that was still the same.
We worked all that to make it the same.
Yeah.
I would just be doing 4 sets of 2 and then a 5th set AMRAP while they were doing 4 sets of 8 or whatever they had.
Yeah. Now, did they shift after you made progress?
So after I hit the 2K, we were training with some guy named Bill and his wife Cindy, and they introduced me to Conjugate, and they just, I don't know why I did it, but they just said, hey, you're going to train Conjugate with us.
Mm-hmm.
And they were from the warehouse gym as well. They were there long before I was. And so I was like, okay, whatever. And that's when we all really started training Conjugate and started doing the exact same thing and stuff like that.
So what did that look like at first?
Oh man, it was like, so I had just competed on that Saturday. And then Monday I walk in the gym and they're like, hey, we're starting, it's max effort lower. I'm like, okay, what are we doing? And they're like, you're going to SSB squat to this box and you're going to just do it until you can't.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
what? And I'm like, okay. And so I'm doing it and my glute pops, and I'm like, what the hell? And I do another set. And it was cool because we've all trained together for so long, but we want to beat each other's asses in there, and I was ready to call it, and I knew the guy next to me wasn't. And so I went up, and it was really cool to how all that kind of started. But yeah, same thing though. Monday was squat, and Wednesday we'd max effort bench. They'd pick a variation for us, and we do it. And we ran that for the next 12 weeks. And my squat went from like I think I hit 765 for the 2K, and I hit 830 at that next meet, and I was fucking sold.
Why do you think so? I mean, what aspect of Conjugate do you think allowed that to happen?
It was the going to failure and being okay, not failure, but going right before it is something I had never done. Right. I would always shut it down at like an RP 8, and I go back through the meet videos, and it's even my third attempts, they're all a lot of weight left. I could have done a lot more. And I think having them, I didn't know what I was doing, but having them pick the weights and the lifts and just telling me, just go till you can't. And feeling like, oh, okay, I've been selling myself short here for quite a long time. I'm capable of squatting a lot more than I thought I was, but you don't know until you've felt that strain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you've only ever gone up to an RP 8, you're going to think that RP 8 is a 10. You're going to think that's your max until you go to a real 10. And so that's kind of what changed for me. And that's
so it taught you to strain.
Yeah, it taught me to strain. It taught me to be okay feeling like that. If the weight feels like it's 1,000 pounds on your back and your eyes about to pop out of your head and you're coming up, that's okay. Like that's not something to be afraid of. It's heavy weight, And
well, if you look back when it was all more linear for you, you've probably only done that 1 or 2 weeks out of that whole training cycle. And that's like on the third rep.
Exactly. Yeah. The first, second rep. And then the third is when it would, maybe even get to that point, but never just right off the bat, heavy grind rep.
Now, what about the speed work with that? Did that fuck with your head? Because now it's lighter weight.
No, because I was fucking out of shape, so it kicked my ass. Right. And I would get a pump, and it wasn't easy. It was, even though it was lighter weight, it was a much harder workout for me.
So you guys were actually going on every minute?
Yeah, we were going every minute, 30 seconds. I mean, they would, I remember doing the squats, and we wouldn't do it when we were training with that crew. We wouldn't do, where we would go in and out with each other. If I was squatting, I'd do all 8 sets of squats right then and there. They'd have the timer, 30 seconds, go. I'd do my 2 reps. I'd stand there, 30 seconds, go. And so I'd bust them all out in 10 minutes. I got very strong doing that. And I got in really good shape doing that. But they were way harder than the max effort workouts for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then so the accessories changed as well, I assume.
Yeah. So they, and it's funny how it all kind of trickles down, but Cindy, the one who was running the Conjugate for us, she was coached by, Josh Bryant. And so all of his crazy accessories are what we were doing, sets of 80 on push-ups, drop sets, push-ups, and, 10-second negative dumbbell benches and rolling triceps, all these crazy stuff for the accessories is what we would do. And it worked. I mean, it was something different, something that we weren't doing. And coming from not doing hardly any accessories to doing that really made a difference.
So where does that take you on your timeline then? Because I have a timeline kind of written out here. Does that bring you to like 2019?
That brings me to, right around the end of 2018, I think. Maybe midway through. Bill and Cindy, the ones that were running our stuff, ended up leaving the gym that we were training at. We're at a new gym at this point. So we'd left the warehouse gym. It the environment changed and stuff. That happens. So we were at a new place, and we were basically like a night crew there. They ended up leaving, and so we were kind of on our own at that point, and I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to learn as much shit as I can about this conjugate stuff, and I'm going to try and put it together for us and see what happens.
So how did you go about doing that?
Man, I read as much stuff as I could. You used to do a thing where you'd answer every DM that was sent to you. And I remember I'd sent you like 10 DMs on, hey, just asking conjugate stuff. And you sent me to a couple links that you had, the periodization Bible that you have, or book, whatever it is. The book of methods, I just read that, and a ton of stuff online, and there's so much information online that it's not hard to find it. And then I just wrote it out, and I just implemented it and stuck with it. We would run these cycles and experiment with different setups where we're squatting 3 times out of every 4 weeks, or we're deadlifting 3 times out of every 4 weeks. But that's really where my conjugate and everything kind of developed, was in that time. And yeah, I was able to really, really dive in and have a lot of success. And I totaled 2175 that following year, training just 100% conjugate.
So during that time period, there's things that worked and things that didn't work.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
What are some of the things that didn't work?
So we did the 3 squat sessions a month, where it's, max effort week 1, max effort week 2, max effort week 3, and then squats. And then the 4th week was a deadlift variation. That worked really, really well for all of our squats. And we would, the accessories stayed the same. We just increased the weight on all that. But when we switched to the 3 deadlifts and then the 1 squat, that was when we kind of started, or at least for me, I noticed I had a lot of issues with that. For me, it was easier to grab a heavy deadlift and not forget how to do it, versus being under a heavy squat for the amount of time that you have to. And some of that stuff, I feel like you have to just be under and get used to more than once a month, at least for me.
Yeah.
So that didn't work at all. I ended up popping my glute with like an 850 squat during one training cycle. So like, okay, well, that didn't work. We tried lots of different, like on dynamic days, we would try benching floor presses in our cycles. Worked for some people, didn't work for me. We experimented with every other week. So like a squat week 1, a deadlift week 2, a squat week 3. And that seemed to work the best for everybody. And that's kind of what I've stuck with since then.
What about the accessories?
So the accessories, the way that I run it now is, like if we have a max effort squat on week 1, that secondary movement is going to be like a deadlift variation. So a typical would be like a max effort box squat, right, against bands. And then the secondary movement would be something that like I'm really bad at, is a block pull. So my secondary movement for that day is gonna be a deadlift block pull. So in my mind, I'm attacking the squat, but I'm also not neglecting that deadlift on that day.
Yeah.
And it allows for more than twice a week or twice a month. Now I'm able to train that deadlift 4 times.
Yeah.
And then the accessories would just follow suit. So I would pick 3 or 4 accessories, and then I'd run those for 3 weeks, just increasing the weight or the reps each time. And then those would cycle. So the main movement was cycled, every week. The secondary movement was cycled every other week, because I would bring that back in on that third, after the second max effort squat. And then the accessories would cycle every 3 weeks.
So what's the load, set, and rep range look like for that secondary deadlift?
So the secondary movement, that it'd typically be like a 5x5, right? So if I'm doing a block pull with a 5x5, I know that I'm going to hit this 2 weeks from now, and I know I'm going to hit this 2 weeks from then. So 3 times in a 5 to 6 week span. My goal is for that last time I hit it to be the heaviest, set of 5 that I can do.
Yeah.
And so I will, kind of work backwards and pick a weight that I know I can get. But I also know I can do more the next time. And that's kind of the hardest part, is saying, okay, I need to call it here so that I can do more next time.
Yeah.
So that's how I regulate that.
Now on that second week, then the week after that, what is that secondary movement then?
So if let's say it's a deadlift, right, is our main movement for the day, then our secondary would be like one that we always go to is SSB, close stance SSB to a box, a low box. That's one that, because I'm a wide squatter, getting that stimulus from the narrow stance is great for me. It also is going to benefit my deadlift. So I'm still able to train more of that deadlift, but it's also a squat movement. So that would be like a secondary for that.
And do you run that the same way that you do your deadlift? So it's 3 weeks worked back on a 5x5.
Yeah. So it's really like you're looking at a 5 to 6 week cycle with every other week of those.
Now, when you take that cycle, and let's just say that's a block, then you go into that, whatever that next block is. If that block then is before a meet, does that go from a 5x5 to a 3x3, or does it drop or stay the same?
Yeah. So it will, going into a meet, that secondary movement will probably drop to like a 5x3 or a 3x3. It gets heavier the closer we go.
Yeah.
And then the main movement switches more to like a linear periodization type, where I'm not doing variations. I'm not doing, crazy lifts or nothing. I'm picking weights that I'm leading into a meet,
Is it still every other week?
Yeah. It's still every other week. So I have to give myself quite a bit of time to work up to that.
So you've kind of taken components from the Lillibridge thing, right? The conjugate thing.
Yep.
And then not really so much the fifth set, but.
Well, and I run the fifth set, kind of a peaking cycle with the fifth set, where it's, I know his extended fifth set is like a 80, 90, 100, 90, 80. And I'll actually run something very similar into a meet. To where 3 to 4 weeks out is my 100% week. And I've led into that. And then I will taper off into the meet.
So as you taper off, does that start 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out?
Yeah, normally I'll take my heaviest squat at 4 weeks out, and then my heaviest deadlift that same week.
Yeah.
So I'll come in on Monday, max effort, I'll take the squat, and then I will swap that dynamic day for a max effort deadlift, or vice versa. I might come in and do a max effort deadlift on Monday, max effort squat on that Friday. But that's when that 100% week is, and then a taper into the meet.
Now, what's that taper look like?
So if I go, let's say I hit 880 on Monday on a squat, that following week would be right around 85 to 90% of that. And then the following week would be right around 70 to 80, and then go into the meet. And that's
with the squat. That's with the squat.
Yeah.
With the bench. The deadlift, is it 3 weeks out done?
Deadlift it's similar. I hit that top set, that 100%. And then I typically don't need to do too much after that. I'll hit maybe one at, 70, 80% from there, and then go.
So then what's the bench look like? How's that?
Bench, I can ride a little longer, and I'll actually do more variations leading into the meet for that. So I can hit, a variation 4 weeks out and be okay. And then 3 weeks out is where I might hit like a top single. And then 2 weeks out, I'll taper in.
All right. So now we move from that back to the leading into phase.
Yeah.
What are the max effort exercises that you found that work for you that you're rotating through?
So I know that, like for squat, if I can squat, 700 pounds against grays, I know I'm where I need to be on my squat to start a peak or to start a 10-week prep, right?
Yep.
I know that when my floor press is around 450 to 500, I know my bench is really strong. It's where it needs to be. Deadlift, I know if I can pin pull from a 3 hole, if I can pin pull anything north of 750, I'm really, really good. My pin pull is less than my floor pull. So I know I'm in great shape from there. And there's a couple more. If I can, suspended good morning, 600 plus pounds for reps, I know everything is as strong as it needs to be to start a prep. And those are, if I can, this isn't a variation, but an accessory, if I can, do the rolling triceps with hundreds for 4 sets of 12, I know that my triceps and everything are where they need to be to start a peak.
Okay. So that brings me to, so here's the meet. Then what do you do after that meet? Because from what you just said, you're intentionally letting those things drop,
Yep.
after that meet. So what's the training look like post meet?
So post meet, it goes, well, usually I'll take a week off or 2 weeks off
Yeah.
sometimes. I just, especially lately, I just feel like shit after meet. I'm lucky to make it to the meet most of the time. So afterwards, I'll take the time off that I need. And then it goes into more of like our dynamic work. We'll jump back up to 12 sets, maybe 15 sets. I'm keeping that, or at least on the squat, right? And I'm just going by feel at this point, but 30% weight. My goal at that point is to get my conditioning where it needs to be. Because, I know with Conjugate, your conditioning should stay high, right? Everything should be the same, but it doesn't for me. I always end up getting deconditioned as the weights get really, really heavy for me. And so I try and have a block or 2 blocks of just straight conditioning.
So how do you know when that metric's been accomplished?
So I know when I can throw 3 to 5 plates on a dynamic day against Grays, and I'm not fucking winded and my shit's not burning after the 3rd set. And it's like you feel, I don't want to say you feel good, but you're in the groove and it, and everything is popping and it just feels good, and you're tired, but you can go again.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're tired, but it's like, okay, I'm ready for the next set versus, oh man, here we go,
Yeah.
And so when I get to that, it's just by feel. I know, I'm like, okay, I can start pushing it again.
All right. So that can take anywhere between 1 and 2 waves. How long is your wave?
Sometimes, yeah.
Is it a 3-week wave?
Yeah, 3-week wave,
Yeah.
and 4th week's usually deload.
Okay.
And it could, like I said, it could sometimes take a lot longer. And I know a couple of the last competitions, I've torn obliques, right? And so then I'm, taking a lot longer because I can't do anything that I wanted. I can do stuff, but I can't train like I want to train. So I have to kind of ease back into it a little bit longer. So yeah, it could be anywhere from a 3-week wave to sometimes 4 or 5 3-week waves just to get back to where I need to be.
All right. So then once you're there, is there a transitional block before that meet prep starts? Because that meet, you can't choose when the meets are.
No. So it's,
so what's that look like? Because that time period can be anywhere between a month or 6 months.
And ideally for me, it's a lot longer, right? I want to be able to train hard without thinking about a meet, right? I want to build up all these variations without having to, because like I said, I go into more of periodization as I lead in, right? More specific. And so I want to be non-specific and get really strong at all that for a while. And so that could go anywhere from 3 to 4, sometimes 5, 6 months, depending on when the meet is or what meet I decide to do. A lot of times I don't pick a meet and say, I'm going to train for this. A lot of times I'll just train and just with the intent of getting stronger. And when I'm at a point where I'm really strong, that's when I'll pick a meet and say, okay, I'm going to, focus on that.
All right. So that transition thing is, because if it lasts too long, then you're going to fall back and then need another conditioning block.
Yep.
So how do you know if you have to fall back into that other conditioning block without there being a meet?
Just by feel, I can tell when I need it. Some of the nagging injuries will kind of start, you'll start feeling some stuff and start feeling worse, a little bit more beat up. Your recovery, I tend to notice kind of starts going down. And so that's when I'm like, okay, I need to kind of get into some recovery or conditioning phase again.
Do you find that more coming from the squat where you can tell that from?
Yeah. Squat. Yeah. I can tell in my hips and my joints and my knees and stuff. And I can just feel it. The weight on the bar will not move like it as fast as it should. I'm a pretty explosive lifter. And if I'm not getting that explosiveness, then I know, okay, it's time to back off a little bit, recondition and go.
I gotta take a piss real quick.
Hey guys, Matt Goodwin, EliteFTS.com. Just doing a little spot here to let you guys know the annual equipment sale will be starting this Thursday, November 16th. It'll run through November 23rd. That's it. Those are the dates. Nothing extra. We're going to do 15% off all the equipment. Contact me directly, Nate Harvey, Chris Bartle. Check the link below. You can reach us directly. You can call, you can email, you can text message, hit us on Instagram, hit us on Facebook. We're here to help you guys out. So if you see something you get stuck in the cart, give us a call. Remember, November 16th through the 23rd.
One of the best ways that you can support the podcast and your training is to join the crew. When you join the crew, you get an extra crew cast podcast every single month. You also get access to our Discord, which has a training Q&A with Team Elite FTS members. You get form checks. You can upload any of your training footage and have your lifts diagnosed, sometimes within minutes, by multiple people. Access to close to 30 different ebooks, training logs, and first sign up access to our weekend training retreats, train your ass off, and other events that we do. Biggest takeaways from that, though, what people enjoy the most and get the most out of is the training Q&A and the form checks, as well as the extra podcast. Hey guys, I'm back in the gym with another limited edition apparel drop. This is the new Live, Learn, Pass On shirt. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about our cambered grip American cable attachment. This attachment has 4 grips and it's cambered. So when you flip it, it actually becomes 8 grips. And if you turn it upside down, there's actually 16. This is one of our most used cable attachments out in the gym. Even got that full range of motion. We got a second limited edition drop this month as well. Head over to EliteFTS.com, pick up the shirt, pick up the cable attachments, and we'll see you next time.
Matt with EliteFTS here at the Armory in Columbus, Ohio. This is a new build, beautiful facility. Should be opening up around November 1st, 2023. Looking at the posterior chain developer, signature version. It's going to have the logo panels on there. Reverse hypers, you can do glute ham raiser, back raise, any kind of posterior chain movement you want to do on this piece. This is really good. The best thing about this, so you just step down on the release, adjust it. So it makes it really easy to adjust these, no pop pins or anything of those sorts. So this is the signature posterior chain developer by EliteFTS.com.
All right. Sorry for the abrupt stop, but I would be remiss if we don't have a cigar with you being a respiratory therapist.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's kind of mandatory.
Yeah, right.
I want to stay on the training thing because we went into that real fast, and which is great because I was going to get to that later, but I'm going to stay on it now. Okay. You found a way, from what you were telling me, to listen to your body and to auto-regulate in a pretty fast period of time. Yeah. You know, normally it's going to take a lifter over a decade to be able to say everything that you just said and to be aware of everything you just said. The ability of, you know, when to back it down based upon basically your nervous system and the ability to flex and contract. I do think being a little bit more explosive lifter does help with that, because you can tell coming out of the bottom of a squat or coming off a box, like this isn't popping,
you
like
know, real quick,
fucked, right? Yeah. So it does help. Where you're doing a lot of coaching now, how do you try to help others get to that point to be able to it's not really regulating at this point, but being able to listen to what their body's telling them?
Yeah. It's hard because a lot of times I'm giving them a number and, you know, and they shouldn't hit it because they feel like shit, or it's the time that, okay, hey, I need to deload. So I'm pretty lucky. A lot of the guys I work with, I'm in person. I see them at the gym. So I can tell when they're warming up, like, hey, you're not on today. We're going to pivot. And the more times that I'm able to kind of tell them that, the more they kind of start to notice, like, yeah, I'm not on today. And then a lot of times, you know, when you are just working up to a heavy single or a heavy triple, the way that I have it set up, they really, if they aren't on that day, it's okay because it's going to regulate itself. You're not going to hit that heavy of a single. You know, it might be 30, 40 pounds less than what we were expecting. And then I'll know that. And then I can come in and hit them with a deload after that or something.
But a lot of lifters will just go up and miss. So are you telling them to not miss?
I always say don't miss. I try and keep it for myself, I don't think I've missed a squat in years. You know, I would rather them shut it down early than miss. Unless I'm there and I can make the call on the weights and what they're doing and stuff, I tell them shut it down a little early.
All right. Where with that max effort stuff, the intention is to strain.
Yep.
The intention isn't really so much to break that 5-pound PR, but that can get, you know, that you figured that out, but in others, they don't figure that out.
Right.
Right. And so, you know, all balls to the wall, you know, they're going to do that and just fuck up. Meanwhile, your body doesn't know the difference between whatever that 5% plus or minus is. Whereas with them, if they're going to pivot, well, let's stay with yourself. Like if you're working up on a max effort movement and you know what your number is, and you can tell sometimes even earlier than 50%, but definitely by 60, 70%, you can tell. What does that pivot look like for you? So,
you know, let's say if the intention was to work up to, a top single and beat my previous, I'm perfectly okay with not taking that top single, or a lot of times I'm okay just working up to the strain and whatever that weight is and then shutting it down. Right. And there's no like mental, you know, I'm not sad that I didn't hit my PR. I'm not sad because it just wasn't there on that day. And there's a lot of factors probably why. And I'm okay with that. So I'll still work up to a strain a lot of times, whether it's a PR or not, because like you said, your body doesn't really know, you know, it doesn't know that it's not 805. It just knows that it's fucking heavy and I'm straining really hard. Which was my intent for the day anyways.
Will you do a triple instead?
A lot of times I'll do a triple. Sometimes I'll do a 5. Sometimes I'll do a pause, you know, some kind of change to make it a little bit harder and a little bit different than the original goal. Normally not a 5, but a triple is a lot of times the next best thing that I'll do. Or like I said, pause, or I'll add a slower negative or something, right? Something to where it's slightly different variation, I guess. But I'm still hitting the max effort and I'm still getting a good number.
Now on the dynamic that won't really come into play that much because the percentages are not in that range. But for you, again, because you know how it feels, and then again, it's only like fucking 8 sets or whatever it is. You can kind of like force yourself to get the fucking sets done. So do you force yourself to get those sets done and then just kind of wait to see how next week goes? So before you adjust? With
the dynamic work, I will, you know, let's say, and I always go off my most recent number, right? So let's say my last meet was a 880 in reps, and I would, I'm not going to obviously go off of 880 pounds in reps for my working sets. That's just not, that's peaked at the meet, you know.
And it's with reps, you know.
So I take, you know, I'll normally will take a % off that, but I will typically, I'll just start at 3 plates with whatever the variation is, right? And I'll do my sets, and I'll do, you know, if the goal is 8 sets of 2, week 1, I might start at 3 plates and I'll do 2 reps. And then that second set, if it feels good, I might add a 10. Third set, okay, I'm feeling really good, I'll add another weight. And if the bar speed continues to increase or stay the same, I'll keep adding weight until where I'm around 50% probably. And then the following week, I'll do the exact same thing, but I'll start where my second set was from week 1. And so 8 sets of 2 at 50%, it's really probably a couple sets at 50, but I'm working up through that. And some of it might be a little over that. But I give myself a range. And again, it's all by feel at this point, you know. But if the bar continues to move fast, I'll keep adding a little weight. And if it doesn't, if it's moving slow, then I know I'll stay there.
What I call that is like a reacclimation week. You're just kind of getting reacclimated to what it is. And then it kind of allows you to know what the second week should be. Then the third week. Same thing with max effort. I don't change it every week. It's, you know, every couple of weeks, but it depends upon what the bar is. I need 1 week just to get reacclimated. Because the bar could be a spider bar and it may not have used it for 12 weeks.
Yeah.
I need a week just to figure out what
Exactly,
the fuck to do, right? And so I'm not going to max out on that because it's not going to suit its purpose.
Right.
Where some bars you pull the handles down, some you push them up, whatever, just to get reacclimated.
Yeah.
Where it sounds like you're using that same type of concept with your dynamic work without overreaching. Because this would be a question for you, if it feels really good, it's really, really good, you're not going to keep working it up.
No, I mean, and I have, you know,
I'm a
meathead. There's times when I've said, fuck it. And I've thrown 550 on against Grays and I'm just boom, boom. But then I always pay for it the next week, you know? And, so yeah, I have to kind of pull that back, you know, 9 times out of 10, I won't keep adding weight. I'll set a limit because I know I have to increase the next week. That's
I think
always
that's
the goal.
Key thing is the smarter the lifter, you're still going to do stupid shit, right? You're still going to do that, but you're going to know what the cost is before you do it. And you'll run it through your head. Like, is this worth fucking up Monday, which is max effort day, or fucking up the next
2 weeks
Friday or whatever it's going to be? And sometimes it is, right? Because sometimes it may, because strength doesn't go like this, you know, especially with athletes you're working with. I mean, sometimes, you know, one technical change and all of a sudden, bam. You know, they just put 50, 60 pounds on their squat, kind of. Then everything else has to adjust because of that. So getting back to, I mean, that's kind of your overall training philosophy kind of laid out in a very simplified way, which you did an amazing job of explaining that, by the way. Then now through your own journey, you've had to deal with whatever this thing is I can't pronounce, but joint inflammation. So when did that first off, what is it?
So it's called intermittent hydrarthrosis. Which it's not actually inflammation. It's synovial fluid in your joints being released. So it will swell up like it's inflamed, but there is no inflammation. And so the weird thing about it is it's on a timer, like a self-regulating timer. So the right knee will swell for 5 days. And, you know, it's like you turn a faucet on a sink on, it'll fill up and it'll start to overflow. So on day 1, I can feel it, you know, filling up in my knee. And then throughout that week, it'll continue to fill. And then by day 5, it's just full as can be. It'll get up to 90, 100 cc's of fluid. And
now, is this just one joint at a time?
So it'll go from the right knee for 5 days. On that 5th day, it'll dissipate. And then I've got about 3 to 4 hours before the left one starts to fill up. And then the left knee would fill for the same thing, 5 days. And then on that 5th day, it would drop and I'd have about a day in between. And then the left elbow would go through the same cycle and it would swell for this one. The elbow would go from 3 to 5 days. And then as soon as it was done though, right back to the right knee. And so it was just it's a pattern, you know, for every 5 days it would do it. And it started with just the right knee. And it was only, you know, it was every Tuesday. And so I'm like, I fucking squat on Monday. So I injured it, right? It's something I'm doing. And so I'm reaching out to everybody I can, you know, I'm working with Dr. Seth and my chiropractor, Dr. Marv back home. And I mean, we're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Because at this point, I thought it was coming from the squat. So we kind of limit what I'm doing, decrease range of motion. We decrease the weight. We're trying to do anything we can. It's still swelling every Tuesday. I'm like, okay, well, let me just not squat. Let me just train legs without squatting. Same thing, just still filling up. And then the left one started filling up on that Saturday. And I was like, okay, so now I still was thinking it was from the legs. I was thinking that I work out on Monday, the right knee would swell on Tuesday. And in my head, I'm thinking that there was just a delay for the left one to catch up from what it had done on Monday. And and I'm working with everybody. And then I started realizing, like, the time started getting closer and closer. And there was like 3 weeks in a row where Wednesday, the swelling, it would change kind of, if it goes off one day, then it makes up for it on the other end. So it would change the days of the weeks a little. So Wednesday is the day that the right knee would stop swelling at that point. And then the left one would start. And it went for about 3 weeks. And I'm like, man, this is just, it's the same fucking time every week, So at this point, I had quit doing any lower body movement, like none. I wasn't doing anything. And I'm like, I remember putting my boots on and being like, man, maybe I'm putting my boots on too hard. I'm just thinking I'm aggravating him. And so I go and I'm like, okay, well, I need to figure out what the fuck's going on. So I get MRIs, I get the fluid pulled and everything. And I have the normal, damage from squatting and stuff, right? Wear and tear and shit. But there's nothing that would cause the swelling that I was having. They pulled the fluid. There was nothing in the fluid, no inflammation, no white blood. So there's nothing in there. It's just synovial fluid. And so at this point, I'm going, the doctors, they don't know. He's just assuming, he's like, oh, it's probably a meniscus. We just couldn't see it, right? I'm like, but doc, this timing thing is weird, right? And I couldn't figure it out. And this went on for months and months. And finally I I just happened to stumble upon somebody on Reddit who was asking the same question on like an arthritis blog. And it's like, man, I got the same thing as you, and sure enough, that word intermittent came up and I typed it in, intermittent, and then hydrarthrosis popped up and boom, plain as day. It was on a pattern, right? Man, that sounds really, what are the chances that, and so I found a rheumatologist and I go to him and I'm telling him, and he just never fucking heard of it. It's, but he was willing to listen, and he listened. I had printed out, every article that I could find, every medication that has been shown to might help. And so he was willing to work with me, and, we've tried all kinds of things. I was injecting Pentacin in my stomach, I was doing anything and everything I could to stop it. And, finally we came across hydroxychloroquine, and that it's taken about a year, but it's a little bit under control now and stuff. But yeah, that was or is the disease. It's just a cycle from joint to joint in a pattern that it never really stops.
Now, over a period of time, will that extend into other joints as well, or you just don't know?
So I've found a Facebook group that there's about 20 of us that have this. Some of these people have had it for 20 plus years. And they've only have it in one joint. Some of them have it in two. I'm the only one that had it in all, three: a right knee, a right left knee, and then a left elbow. I don't know if it never went to the right elbow because I don't have a right, I tore that right bicep off and I never got it repaired. And so I'm like, I wonder if it, not being a tendon there or something kind of had something to do with it not attacking.
Yeah, don't do what you're thinking. Because I know if I were you, what I would be.
I did. Just one big curl and but so yeah, so it was, and throughout this whole thing, I'm like, yeah, I can't walk right. I can't sit down. I can't put my shoes on. When your knee is swollen, and there's no pain with this. It's just swelling, but your range of motion is gone, and you can't do anything when you have no range of motion. And so, and throughout all this, though, the only thing I'm thinking of is like, how the fuck am I going to squat? How am I going to train? This is what I do. And it was really, really, like, it was depressing, you know, because I didn't have any answers. There was no cure, you know, that anybody knew about. There was nobody even knows what it is. And so it was very kind of, it was, my identity is wrapped up in this sport. And I was like, what the hell am I going to do? You know? And eventually I was just like, fuck it. I know my knee's going to swell on this day. I know it's going to swell on that. I have 2 hours between then. So I would plan out my entire month of training around when it would swell. And so I was able to train that way.
So it was that consistent that you were able to do that?
Yeah, I could map it out for a month. And I remember I mapped out a bench only meet, and it was like, the swelling should have ended on a Friday so that I could have benched on a Saturday. I mean, it was that, you know, accurate. And it did. It ended up dropping on the Friday, and I was able to bench on the Saturday. And so, yeah, it was very, very, very accurate. And which is fucked up, because then when I started taking the medicine, it started like changing that cycle. And I'm like, well, it's getting better, but now I can't fucking train. I can't set up my program in the right way. So it was like, you know, I was happy that it was helping, but I was pissed because it was screwing up the cycle. But yeah, I had to, that's how I worked around the training part of that.
How long have you, it sounds like it's somewhat mitigated now. So how long has it been mitigated?
Really maybe a few months, and it's still on the same cycle. It's just, whereas normally I would go 5 days of just agony with it being swollen, it's only a couple days. It just, a lot of times it happens to fall, like on my last prep, it seemed like every day I was going to go squat, it would be one of the days that it swelled. And so
what do you do there? Do you just, because you're every other week with the squat, right? So do you just push it a couple of days, or do you skip it?
So eventually I said, I'm not going to let this dictate what I do. I have to squat on this day. You know, I have it set up. So that's when I reached out to everybody. Donnie Thompson sent me a lot of stuff that helped, Seth, and I kind of came up with a way to get the swelling out of my knee and push it into my quad to where I could bend the knee and I could squat and have no issues.
And what is that?
I just take two floss bands, and I start at the calf and I go all the way up my leg, like halfway up my quad. And then I started with like a body tempering roller, and then I found I could just use a foam roller or a PVC pipe, and I could lay on it with the band around my leg, and I could just push that fluid out, and it would lump up in my quad, and then I'd have a knot like the size of my fist in my quad, but my knee was fluid free, and so I could squat and I could bend it. And so this whole, you know, and there's a couple things I do before that, but the whole process would take 45 minutes to an hour to get the fluid out before every session. Then I could start my warm-ups and go through everything. So it was a long, you know, process of figuring out what can I do to train around this. And eventually, I was able to find out, okay, I can just squeeze this stuff out and it'll last 30 minutes, and I can squat for those 30 minutes. And then,
what about the elbow?
So the elbow, I wasn't able to ever get it out. I could throw an elbow sleeve on and work around it, but I would eventually have to go to like a 3-board or 2-board or something that I wouldn't have to have full flexion in the bottom, you know, or have it completely bent. That one was, the elbow's weird because it, you know, you feel your bones in there getting pressed against with that fluid. And it was, you know, the best way to describe it is like if you step on a wet sock, you know, the fluid, you can feel it. Well, that's how it feels when you go to press with that fluid in your, it feels like it's in the bicep tendon.
Can you work around it with like 2 boards and 3 boards?
With 2 boards and 3 boards, I can work around it, but like, it just feels very weird. And same thing with the knees. They feel, when there's fluid in there, it feels very fucking weird. Like something's wrong. And so a lot of times I'll put these knee wraps on and, you know, go to squat, and it's like, I don't know if my knee is fucked up from something else or if it's, like, or is this the disease?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times I'm going into it and you just have to kind of be okay with anything that happens, right? You have to convince yourself that, you know what, if it goes, it goes. I'm okay with that. And so that's kind of what the mindset has been into all these squats now, is because I can feel them. They pop, and when there's fluid in there, they feel just fucking horrible. But yeah, that's the elbow. I haven't been able to get it out. It's luckily, since I started this medication, since it's kicked in, the elbow is the least, knock on wood, but it's been the least problem or troublesome lately.
Has diet helped in any way with any of this?
No. And I thought it would, but it hasn't helped any. And I'm extremely strict, work with Nathan Peyton, and yeah, it hasn't helped.
Yeah. Have you always been strict with your diet through this whole thing?
Not at all. Through the disease, yes. With powerlifting, no. I was on the seafood diet, seafood and you eat it.
Yeah. So what made you make the changes, reach out to Nathan? And then what changed? How has it helped?
So, I totaled, in 2022, right before all the knee stuff, I totaled 2220, when I was with the shit diet. And, I wanted to, and it took me a long time to get to that from 2175. There was a lot of trials and a lot of injuries and stuff that went on to get to that. And not that I wasn't strong enough to hit that multiple times. I couldn't put it all together or last long enough in the training cycle to hit it. And so when I finally hit it, I really wanted to do better, and I knew I could. And I was like, okay, what am I doing here? I'm sleeping 10 hours. I'm taking all the stress that I have. I'm not doing anything stressful. I've worked my entire life around this, but I'm eating Wendy's 4 times a fucking day. And so I was like, there's got to be something. That's the last bit, right? And so that's when I reached out to Nathan and was like, okay, what else can I do to be as strong as I can be? And so
what did the first change look like? I mean, going from eating, give me a day before you were working out with him, just a sample day.
A sample day, I would wake up and I would have, the breakfast wasn't too bad. I'd have like 10 eggs, bagel with cream cheese and big old glass of milk or something. Because after that, though, is when I would go to McDonald's. I'd have the big breakfast with hotcakes every day. I'd make a biscuit breakfast thing with all of it, and just so I could get it down. And then I'd go to Wendy's 4 for $4 and I'd eat that. In between all that, I'm stopping at me and my girlfriend would go out to eat, and on our way there, I'm stopping at Taco Bell to grab 2 bean burritos, because I know there's going to be an hour-long wait at the restaurant, and I don't want to go 2 hours without eating. So then we'd eat our food there, and then I'd end the night with like a Schlotzsky's pizza or something. I mean, it was every day fast food. And with that, I'm still eating, 2 to 3 10-ounce beef and rice meals. That was just all extra stuff. But that's how a typical day would go. But I was always, even though it was shit food, I always was eating, and I never would go 2 to 3 hours without eating.
Yeah.
So, and I think that helped a lot.
I'm pretty sure you probably weren't deficient in any
I was not
micronutrients.
deficient in anything. No.
So what did the first pivot look like once you started working with him? Did all that go away, or was it a slow, gradual change?
Yeah. So I think it sounds funny, but like the first week I didn't have any cheat meals until Saturday. I was dying. I was like, I want a fucking cheeseburger. But yeah, it was, he had me, I'm eating 6 meals a day at that point. And at that point, it was, I think 9 ounces of meat. And I chose, it had to be a lean meat, turkey, lean beef, something like that, steak. But I would eat that, and you'd have 6 meals a day of a protein source. Like I said, it'd probably be turkey. 3 of those meals is like a carb. And so I had a lot of carb options. Rice cakes, sourdough bread, which was nice because I was done with the rice. And so I was able to eat,
Mm-hmm.
get the carbs that I needed. And then we, 2 fruit meals, right? So I have a protein and a fruit, and then vegetables. I'd have 3 vegetable meals with those protein and carbs. And so that was like the base diet. And I do that 6 meals a day, every single day.
What did your body weight do?
So when I reached out to him, I was about I never went below 300. I always tried to, I competed in 308, but I tried to stay at 300 to 315. I dropped down to like 280, really, really quickly. And,
Did that fuck with your head?
oh yeah. Yeah. And it still will fuck with my head when I drop down, but, yeah, I dropped down pretty quick, and I think I got down to like 278. And I was hungry, and I was not used to going to bed hungry. It was weird.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm used to just eating until I was about to puke every single meal.
Mhm.
And so to go to bed hungry was very strange. And, yeah, so I did that, and the base itself never changed, but the portions did, right? So I went from 9, I'm up to 13 ounces now, but I was able to still, like, I just competed at, weighed in at 303 or something. And then after that, I'm still eating 13 ounces 6 times a day, but I dropped down to 278 again, right? So I'm able to eat more food while weighing less, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
The body weight still fucks with my head, but I'm bigger and leaner each time it happens. So
you go up and down.
mhm.
Now you're gaining into the meat.
I gain into the meat now.
Yeah.
So like, or even, into a lift, I had a bigger squat on Monday. I've been hovering around 282, 281. And so 2 weeks out, he kind of started me on to build back up for this one squat. And yeah, I think I weighed like 293 the day of the squat, right?
Mhm.
Which, it's easy to do when you're just eating shit food all the time. But when you're eating really clean, to have a 10-pound gain like that quick is pretty cool. And it had an immediate effect on my lift. So
Was that just increasing the serving sizes of all those things again?
no, so those stay the same. And so what'll happen is I will get targeted cheat meals. And so like, let's say, we'll stick with the same Monday, Wednesday,
Mhm.
Friday, Saturday. If I've got, a heavy squat on Monday, then I'll have a cheat meal prior to that. And if it's above a certain percent or it's going to take a lot out of me, then I'll have a targeted cheat meal that night to help with recovery. And so leading into this bigger squat I had on Monday, the week prior was a deload, right, in my training. So we used that week, and I had almost a cheat meal every night, and then a simple cheat meal prior to those workouts. But I'm able to actually utilize those cheat meals, and they, it's almost like I absorb them a lot better than previous, right? Instead of, they add to me, it's almost like an instant effect. And so, yeah, so you just increase the cheat meals really. I'll have, like Rice Krispies in between certain sets and stuff like that. But, yeah, and it put the weight on me, and it gave me just a abundance of nutrients and calories that I wasn't getting, and my body fucking used them. And I had
So what is
really
a
big
cheat
spot.
meal?
So it typically like a cheeseburger and 2 large fries. That would be like a simple cheat meal. I'm allowed dairy, or I'm not allowed dairy unless it's like cheese, right? So cheeseburger and fries is usually the pre-workout cheat meal of choice. And then like a recovery cheat meal or a cheat meal at night, that'll be, sometimes I'll do like a large thin crust pizza, like fajitas and tortillas and stuff like that. Go out and eat, have Mexican food or something.
So with the squat that you did Monday, outside of being more weight,
Yeah.
what did you feel different about it?
I just felt stronger. I mean, really, I again, with, my last squat at my last meet was 865 in reps. Prior to that or after that, it's been about 20 weeks, and the heaviest I've gone is 615 in sleeves, and they've been heavy. You know, they don't feel very good. And so that was 2 weeks ago. I hit a 615 triple, and third rep almost killed me. And that's when we implemented, okay, boom, we're going to start the bloat. And I came in and smoked a 750 pound squat like it was, you know, nothing. And so I instantly knew, like, from the first rep, like, man, I feel fucking strong. And it's weird to see because you don't think, you know, I just struggled with a 615. Why would I be able to hit a 750 pound squat, you know, 2 weeks later?
Yeah.
But the way that the system, the diet is set up, it has a really good effect on you. But you have to be really strict too. You know, you can't, there is no cheating other than when he says, or else it doesn't work when he says to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So as you're planning out your next peak for a meet, you know, are you strategically going to have this type of cycle, you know, with the diet in there for the heavier days?
Yeah. And so, and I'll tell him, like, hey, you know, I've got a meet on this day. I've got this big lift coming up. I've got another big lift coming up on this day. I need to hit this, right? And we'll be able to go through that, and he'll set the diet up for that. And again, a lot of times it's hard for me because, you know, I want every session to be strong and, you know, but I have to realize it doesn't have to be like that. You know, not every session has to be super bloated up and ready to go.
Yeah. So when you back off from the meet like that, how do you know which ones you have to be on and which ones you don't?
Like, well, again,
especially in conjugate, you got max effort and dynamics. So you're going to have to overemphasize one of those.
Yeah. And so I just understand that I'm not going to be super fed and maximized on those max effort days coming out of a competition. And I just understand that my numbers are going to be less at that point. But, you know, they're always, at least for me, they're always going to be less because, again, I'm coming out of the reps. You know, the body weight's coming down, the drugs are coming down, everything is down, right? So the max effort numbers that I'm hitting 4 or 5 weeks after a meet are different than what I'm hitting, you know, 2 months leading into the meet or something.
Yeah.
And so I'm okay with that. Again, as long as I'm straining on that, then I'm getting what I need to do.
All right. With the PEDs, do you pull those up? Obviously, I mean, before a meet, but if that's 10 weeks out is when your starting line is, or 12 weeks out, do you wait to pull it up then, or do you pull it up during those transitional phases?
No, it'll be, it peaks with the training cycle. So going into the meet is when it'll peak. And those get pulled, you know, right afterwards.
Yeah. How far down?
Just to like baseline, like 250.
And then you hold that for how long?
As long as I can.
Okay.
Yeah. And I, you know, prior to working with Nathan and doing everything on my own, I would have, you know, these really strong peaked numbers. And then I would have like a number that I know if I can get to that on this baseline dose, I know I'm stronger. I might not be hitting the 880, but if I'm hitting 800 on this dose, I know that when I step back on it, I'll be higher on the end.
I used to call those DFPRs.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not really drug free, but you kind of are.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have that.
That's exactly what it is.
But that can fall below that baseline, right? So let's say it falls below that baseline, but the next meet 6 months out, then how do you mitigate that?
I haven't had it. I haven't had it fall enough to where it mattered. I've experimented with a lot of different training cycles and starting at different numbers. And I've, at least for the last 4 years, I've always been able to get back up to around an 800 deadlift, around an 850 to 900 squat, and mid 5 bench. whether it's 8 weeks or 10 weeks, no matter where I'm starting from, and as far away as it seems in my head, I'm like, I might not make it back to those numbers this time. I always do. No matter what, I always make it back to those numbers. So I don't really panic and worry about it getting too low or anything like that, because I know if I continue to just put in the work in the off season and, the drug free, then they'll be there when it needs to be.
Yeah. So the shorter prep, the better then.
Yeah.
Because it's less accumulated damage.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it was the 2175, you had a lot of shit that you had to contend with during that time period. So that could be, a lot of different things during that period. What were some of those things you had to contend with? I assume injuries are going to fall in there. What were those? Because it's kind of easy to get to a certain point. Then it's a whole nother game to go from that 2175 to the 2220. Yeah. It's not just 50 pounds.
No,
it's a fucking lot, right?
Yeah.
So between those two numbers, what were some of the things that you had to contend with and deal with and work around? Or figure out would be better.
Yeah. So the continued hamstring issues. I was constantly tearing hamstrings. I'd get really fucking strong and, I'd be ready to go. And then boom, I'd pop one. And not one that like, okay, I can still probably compete in a couple weeks. It would be, one that I couldn't walk, know. I did a meet and everything was, I was lined up to hit the 2200. That was the number that I wanted. And I went for a 900-pound squat on my third and, tore an intercostal muscle. And it was the first time I'd ever done it. And I was like, oh shit, I couldn't breathe, and it affected my deadlift. And I still hit a bench PR, and it still was a squat PR on my second attempt. And so that was one that, again, I was there, I was strong enough. I just couldn't hold up to do it. And then COVID came, and so as a respiratory therapist, I was working in the ICU doing all that, and then still trying to train. The gym's closed down, and we had a storage unit that we turned into a gym and had a whole crew training out of that. And again, I got very, very strong. I think there was about 3 or 4 training cycles in that time span of 2175 to 2220 where I was very capable of I was hitting the numbers that I needed to hit in the gym to hit it on the platform. I just could not hold myself together long enough to do that. Something would go, something would break, something would give right before, and eventually I had a 12-week span. And the good thing about all that is it's not like I was getting weaker when all that was happening. I was still just getting stronger. I still hit those numbers in training. I just wasn't able to transfer it yet. And so the strength stayed. And then eventually I found a 10-week span where I didn't fuck myself up enough to pull out. And I was able to hit a nice total there. And finally, it all came together.
Was there anything that you can pinpoint that led to that, or just slowly everything healed?
That was when I went full auto regulation on everything other than the main movements. So I would still do the max effort upper and lower, and those were still kind of, I still kind of planned those a little bit, but all my accessories were 100%. Okay, what did I do? What did I feel on this main movement that I can address right now on this workout? And that's what I would do. And so I'd go in and I'd have no idea what I was going to do that day. I knew I was going to squat. And after that, it was just, okay, let's just see what I need to work on. And so I'd squat, and I'd still follow the same plan of, I'd hit the hamstrings and all that, but I didn't have anything planned. I wasn't trying to increase the weight for 3 weeks on any of that. I just auto-regulated everything. And if something felt off, I didn't do it. I didn't try to add 10 pounds to my Penley row from the week before.
Yeah.
If my hamstring felt a little shaky, you know, I'd swap and do something else. And that worked really, really well going into that meet. And then it didn't work after that because you start doing the things that you like to do and maybe aren't, you can shy away from things you need to do if you're just completely don't have a plan, you know.
Your work capacity can also drop.
It does.
Because you're not doing enough, you know, with that. But the ability to auto-regulate based upon that main movement, again, is another thing that takes people a long time.
Yeah.
Because there's two things going on there. You can do what you're doing, like this feels a little fucked up, I'm not going to do that. Or it could also be in the squat. My adductors are working a little harder than what they should. Yeah. So I probably need to bring them up a little bit.
And you know that from that first, know that. And then that's something you can address it right then and there, which is what I really liked.
No, I think that's a huge thing because the way I explain it is it can either be an activation issue or a strength issue. Yeah. Right. And if all it is an activation issue, well, then you can do it that day. You can do it the next training day. Yeah. And then by the time the squat comes around again, it's solid. Yeah. Right. Now, if it's a strength issue, you can still do the same thing. But then the next time you're like, fuck, it's still weak. Yeah. Well, then now it's a supplemental exercise.
Yeah. And now that's the one that I would progress over a span of 3 weeks or so.
Yeah. But the trap you can get in when you're pulling things out because of that is a lot of times it's kind of like you're peaking for a meet. Mm-hmm. And you slowly pull and you're like, fuck, I'm strong. Fuck, I'm strong. Yeah. But you don't realize you just kind of did a mini peak. Yeah. Then you never add the things back in. And that happens to no matter how somebody trains. Yep. Whatever the philosophy that they always end up there. And then it's like, fuck.
And that's where I was. And then I was right back to square one, getting injured, hurting because I was shying away from the things I actually needed. Mm-hmm. And so from there, you know, that was 22-20, and then all the joint stuff happened, and I came back from that and I signed up for meet, and I was able to get all the way, I told 2182 or 85, whatever the kilo is at this last one, which is my second best total. But again, going into that, you know, I smoked an 865 squat in training. I smoked an 800-pound deadlift. And at the meet, you know, my TFL was jacked up. I had my chiropractor, Dr. Marv, he was dry needling me in between attempts. And I went to deadlift, and which was going to be that was my lift at that meet, right? I was, you know, I had 8, you know, you have these numbers in your head. It never really happens or goes to plan, but I was sure that 830, 835 deadlift was going to be there. And so I'm warming up and on the deadlift, and I'm taking my last warm up around 700. I'm opening at 765, and the meet I'm at, there's probably 50 lifters. I'm in the last flight. I'm the last lifter. So because of that, I don't typically take my last warm up until the flight started, because if I do it before then, I'm going to be sitting there forever. Mm-hmm. The problem with that, which I've never experienced till now, is I tore my oblique on that opener. I mean, it just fucking popped off. Or not my opener, my warm up. So I went to the desk and I'm like, hey, I need to lower my opener. And like, flight's already started.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking, well, shit, I'm opening with 765. How am I going to lift 65 more pounds? And so yeah, I did my opener and dropped it. You know, I missed it, and it was like it was the most pain I've ever felt, I think, is in a lifting sense. Just you don't realize how much you use that oblique to lift, especially on a deadlift. And yeah, so I went up. I went 70, whatever the minimum jump is, and I got it. And again, it was excruciating, but I was like, okay, well, you know, I've in my head, I needed to prove something to myself just because of all the joint stuff, and you know, everybody kind of thinking I was gonna be done. And JP Carroll was there, and he was like, wrap with duct tape now. So he's wrapping me, and he threw 800 pounds on the bar, and or 799, whatever I'll call it 800.
Mhm.
And yeah, I was able to pull that, and oh my God, it was the most excruciating thing ever, but I got the lift. And um, so after that, I went home, and I'm like, again, I was strong enough. I was strong enough to beat my previous total. I did everything right as far as strength wise. I just could not hold myself together to get it done. So I reached out to a guy named David Osborne, who's a coach. And I told him, I'm like, man, I've been training Conjugate the last, 5-6 years. I don't know what to do at this point. I know I'm lacking. I know I'm not doing something that I need to do, because I can get strong. That's not a problem. I just can't keep the strength long enough to do what I know I can do.
Yeah.
And so I started working with him about 14 weeks ago, and he's brought in some things that they're like easy pickings. And he'll have me deadlift, and I'm very fast and explosive, and I'll just fucking pull it and throw it down. And one of the things he immediately had me do was just control the negative. Just control it on the way down. And I'm like, okay, whatever. But now, instead of doing, a 1 second lift on a deadlift, it's turned into a 3 or 4 second.
Mhm.
I'm hitting my hamstrings. I'm hitting my obliques in ways that they normally aren't getting hit. And that's just one of the easy things that I've done to, not bulletproof myself, but help, kind of prevent some of these injuries that I think that
Yeah.
this is the cause of. I don't have to add more weight. I don't have to do more reps, no more sets. Something like that is something easy I can do that is automatically going to help. And so a lot of unilateral work that I've been doing, and some box jumps and stuff that I have always strayed away from, but it's really made me feel more resilient, I think. And when we do creep back into those higher weights, I think I'll be able to handle it a little bit better.
Well,
That's the hope.
Yeah, there comes a
That's
point.
the hope.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the game. I mean, the game is you always need more strength than you think.
Yeah.
To hit a certain total. So
Yeah.
total 22, you need to be strong enough to be 23.
Exactly.
And then the healthiest person at the meet in that weight class is typically the one that's going to win.
Yeah.
Right. Even if there's 100-pound variance between totals.
Yeah.
The healthier one. So you got to go in the healthiest that you can.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which changes a lot of those things like you're talking about there, and all these other issues of when to dial back, when to pull things back, when to keep things in, certain stupid shit like that, working eccentric strength that typically doesn't get loaded that much.
Right.
And all those other factors that play into that. You mentioned that you were a respiratory therapist during COVID, which is an interesting thing because you went to school basically just to only train, right? And then when you finally get, certified, licensed, or whatever to do what you want to do, you start that profession to the most fucked up time.
Fucked me, man. Yeah.
So what did that look like?
Oh man. Yeah, it was like you said, it was horrible. At first it was fucking awesome. I was like, okay, I'm making money. I can train the way I need to train. I can support myself. I can make my schedule work for me, and it was great. But yeah, and then COVID happened, and and it's funny because
where were you at the time? Were you at a hospital?
Yeah, I was at a hospital. Yeah. And right before or right after it all happened, Westside Barbell put up a thing on their Instagram and was like, if you think you have what it takes to train here, send us your numbers or whatever. And so I sent them my numbers, and I didn't think anything of it. And then like 3 weeks later, I get a little message on my phone, and it's like, call Louie, and just a phone number. I'm like, oh shit. Okay. So I called it, and his wife answered, and like, oh, well, he's not here. He'll call you back. And yeah, he called me, and he could never remember my name. He always knew me as 308, he just called me 308, and he knew my deadlift. He liked that it was an 800-pound deadlift. But he, wanted me to come out and train, and I kept, I was like, yeah, dude, as soon as this 2 weeks COVID thing is over with, I'll be on the next fight out there. And that 2 weeks, it just did not, it wasn't 2 weeks, obviously. It ended up stretching 2 fucking years. And for me, with my job, it was, I had to be there. I had to stay, I had to work respiratory therapy. And but yeah, it really negatively affected my training as much as I tried not to let it. A normal shift would be, it's hectic, it's a hospital, you know, but the amount of volume, the amount of patients that we were seeing, the amount of stress that the patients would bring you, right? It's not like a, you know, just somebody, I'm just giving a breathing treatment to this guy. It's like, this guy's probably going to die, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just over and over and over and over and over again. And then I'd get off work and try and train, and, you know, it would just be horrible sessions. I, again, was getting injured, and, you know, you're not sleeping, you're stressed, your nutrition is shit when you're in the hospital working all the time. And yeah, it had a huge detriment to my training. And it despite all that, that was when I totaled, I guess I totaled 2K. I hit an 865 squat, a 525 bench. And then that was with the, after that squat. So I only deadlifted like 6, but.
What, was there overtime associated with all that during that time too?
Yeah. So, they were just begging. I mean, they just needed people to work. So yeah, there were 12-hour shifts, and you could work as much as you wanted. And so I tried to work not as much as I could, but I tried to work enough to, again, just train the way I wanted to train.
Yeah.
And so whereas I know a lot of people were, because the pay was a little bit more during that time for them, they would work a shitload. And looking back, if I was smart, I probably would have done that. But I'm thinking, well, now I can work less and train more because I'm making the same amount of money and stuff. But yeah, eventually that didn't work. And yeah, I had to just work a lot in the hospital. And while I'm doing this, I'm training people Monday through Thursday, and I would work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then into the week sometimes. But I'm personal training during the week, you know, kind of after that first year when gyms kind of opened back up. And I'd been training people for quite a while, but this was the first time it had actually really blown up, you know, just personal in person.
Yeah.
And I was having to where it was a good 6 to 8 hour day, which is hard to do, you know, to get enough clients to do that. And so after that last year of COVID, it was like right at 2 years. I went into work that day, and I was doing CPR on this person. I got puke all over me, and it was like 7 a.m. I hadn't even had breakfast, and I'm like, I'm fucking done with this, you know? And so, yeah, I put my 2 weeks in and then started training. And then that was when the shift happened as far as, okay, now I'm set up to hit those total that I want. You know, I'm working in the gym, I'm training people, I can make my own, you know, make my own hours, make my own schedule. And it eventually led me to the 2220 total that I had.
All right. So when you're in the hospital, is that all the way, are you working the ventilators, or?
Yeah.
So it's from the first breathing treatments all the way to that?
So like a typical, you know, you get assignments. So I could be assigned to a floor unit. I could be assigned to the ICU, be assigned to the ER. Typically what would happen is, somebody would come in, at least during COVID time, someone would come in and they'd be fine. You know, they'd have some short of breath. And after about a day, you'd have to put them on a little nasal cannula, like 2 liters or something, nothing crazy. But as the days would go on, they started having to get more and more and more oxygen. And then they, you'd have to change modalities, go from a nasal cannulas to a face mask, and then you're going to a high flow, and then you're going to a BiPAP. And then from the BiPAP, it's like the only thing left is a ventilator. And so I would see these people from the moment they came in and talking to them and being friendly, you know, and then to where they're like, okay, you know, there's no other options here. We're going to put you on we have to. And then, yeah, a lot of them just didn't make it after that. But as a respiratory therapist, yeah, we would work through that entire thing. So we would run the ventilators, we run the BiPAP machines, we manage the entire airway, all the oxygenation, all that.
So is that BiPAP the same as, because I have friends of mine that have the CPAP, right?
Yeah,
Which,
yeah.
That's one thing. But I have other ones that have sleeping with a BiPAP. So
Yeah.
they're like one fucking step away from sleeping with a ventilator.
So essentially, but
That's fucked up.
So what a BiPAP will, CPAP is continuous pressure, right? It's just blowing. Whereas a BiPAP is actually going to have 2 levels and give you a volume of breath in your lungs. And so, which is what a ventilator does. A ventilator just does it really fucking good because it's in your lungs. Yeah. And so, yeah, they're wearing a BiPAP because they're not probably taking the amount of breaths that they need to take in their sleep. So it's breathing for them, Yeah. Yeah.
Do you use a CPAP?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was one of the, man, when I went from, that was one of the things that got me to that first 2175 from whatever I was at. I can't remember before that, but yeah, I was in respiratory school and I'm drinking, I'd wake up, I'd have a Red Bull. It'd be in my first class with a Red Bull. So I'd have 2. And then I'm falling asleep in that, drinking that. And yeah, I would just fall asleep everywhere. I'd fall asleep when I'm driving home. I could fall asleep. Me and you talking here, if you quit talking for 5 minutes, I could fall asleep. And I'm thinking, what the fuck is, I'm tired. And yeah, we're learning about this shit in school. And I'm like, that sounds a lot like what I have. So we got a sleep study and they're like, yeah, I think it was, I had 600 episodes in the 4 hours that I was able to wear the thing. And they're like, you're using like 30 minutes of sleep each night. We don't know how you're living. And yeah, so I got a CPAP and fucking life changed. And so I'm a huge advocate of that. I tell people all the time, get a CPAP. If you, not just to be strong, but to live, get a CPAP. Yeah. But if you want to be strong and you're a bigger person, I mean, it's the greatest PED there is.
Well, it's easy now too.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy.
They self-regulate.
Yeah.
And when I
just
first
plug it in and put it on.
Exactly. But they won't. And until they do, right? I mean, I remember when I first got mine, man, I fucking hate it. It took a while.
Yeah, it does.
It took a while. There's no doubt about that.
It's weird. You're trying to breathe against air. It feels very strange.
So you have your personal training thing and that. So was it the personal training that allowed you to walk from the respiratory therapy?
Yeah. So I had.
Well, I mean, were you ready to walk anyhow?
I was ready. I hated that job.
Yeah.
Again, because I didn't want to do that. It was just a job that I did because I could, survive with it. I needed to make money. I thought that I was all in before that, right? Because I had a respiratory job and I said, it fucked my training. I quit that job. I was sleeping on a couch. I gave up everything to reach a total. And I thought that's what I had to do. And, I had to step back and say, you need to be able to afford food. You need good sleep. Like you need to do things. You need to be able to live to hit these numbers that you want to hit. And so that's when I was like, okay, well, how all in am I if I'm not willing to go work a job that's going to pay me to do this? Right? Like if I say I'm all in, but I don't want to go fucking work at the hospital, that's not very all in. And so that's when I was like, okay, well, fuck it. Let me go do this. And I did it as long as I needed to. And yeah, as soon as I was able to get out, I got out. And knowing that I have that I can always go back to that has helped make that kind of decision. But yeah.
How has that all in changed over time?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I quit my first hospital job. It was a night shift job. It was destroying my diet, my training. In my mind, it was destroying it. And so, yeah, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to work that. I'm going to do what I can to make enough money to eat. I was door dashing. I was sleeping on a couch, staying at my dad's or staying somewhere else or in my car, right? Whatever I could do to spend as little money as possible so that I could spend the money I did have on food, on training. And that you can only do that so long, before you realize like, and I totaled 2175 and I was like, fuck, this is what I have to do, because I did have success doing that at the time. Right. And I was like, okay, this is just what it's going to be. I'm just going to sacrifice this stuff for as long as I need to. But then, yeah, like I said, it just started where I didn't have money to go to eat the food that I needed to eat. You can only get so strong sleeping on a recliner in your dad's living room, I had a degree, and I knew that I needed to work. I needed to have relationships with people. I had completely I quit pursuing relationships with friends, with anything, because it was distracting in my mind from what I needed to do. And it got to a point where I realized it was just self-destructive more so than anything else.
Well, the mental stress that will accumulate, still becomes stress that you need to recover from. Hence, you can't get stronger.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was hard for me to realize that I had dug myself into a hole that I thought I was doing the right thing. And in reality, it might've been the right thing to get me to that initial point, right? Like looking back, I wouldn't change it because I was able to get really strong that way. But then to take it to the next level, I had to, like you said, the mental stress. I had to have friends, and I had to have a relationship, and my family, and all of that helped me get to the 2220 total from the 2175.
What or who helped you change that mental set?
Like that I needed to do that?
Yeah. Because it's a trap too.
Yeah.
Because you can get stuck in that.
Yeah.
I know people have been stuck in it for 30 some years and still stuck in it.
Yeah. I think, a big part of it was meeting my girlfriend, until then I didn't have any money. So it's hard to try and date people when you don't have any fucking money. And so when I met my girlfriend, Jessica, I was like, okay, well, I really like her and I want to take her out, and so that was kind of the shift as far as like, okay, if you get hurt or if something goes wrong with powerlifting, you don't have anything left. You don't have anything else.
Yeah, but did you give a fuck?
No.
So
at that point, I didn't.
Yeah.
But for some reason, when I met her, I was like, okay, maybe I can do, because there was a kind of a shift. I was seeing, again, I was stuck at this 2175 for a good while in my mind. And the people that I was chasing, like Shane, all these guys in the 308 class, I'm obsessed. I'm chasing their numbers always. I'm always looking on Open Powerlifting. So I wanted to beat them, and we were all very neck and neck. And I watched them all get stronger and stronger, and I was still, stuck at those numbers. And I'm looking at what they're doing, and none of them are, they have relationships, and they have these jobs, and they have all this, not that they're not sacrificed, but they have lives, and
balance is stability.
Yeah, exactly. Stability. And I'm thinking, and I don't, and they're stronger than me. So what am I doing wrong that they're not? And so that's kind of where it shifted as far as like, I need some stability. And I was training with a guy named Tom Emlander, who he was one of my, it's funny, he was kind of one of my idols when I first started. He was like the USPA second best deadlift record. He was chasing KK's number, and he had a mid 800-pound pull back in 2010, 2011, which at the time was really fucking good. And, you know, he was, he is an extremely successful business guy. He works for Weatherford. He's one of the top dogs. And I just remember being like, I'm like, man, this guy's got a family. He's got a house. He's got a kid and a wife. And he was able to hit these big fucking numbers, you know? And I'm like, I think I can do that. And that's what it's still all in, because I'm doing it because I want to do it, but I'm also doing it because it's going to make me a better power lifter in the grand scheme of things. Right. That's the only reason I got a job, to be a better power lifter. I went back to the hospital, and so it all kind of comes back to, I want a bigger total. I want to be a better power lifter, but this stuff is going to help me get there, you know? And it absolutely has, you know, just having support, not doing it alone. And it's made a big difference.
So with, when did you start training clients in person?
This was back, I've been doing it for just regular clients probably since 2016. And then it shifted a little bit to more strength, and I trained a lot of people for free for a very long time. I did a lot of, or like $20 a month, right? And I wanted to train as many people for free as I could, because if they didn't get any stronger, then it was like, okay, well,
it's not you.
Yeah. You know, I'm experimenting here too.
Yeah, no loss.
Yeah. And so I wanted to get as much experience with that as I could. And so, I started that probably in 2016. And then I didn't start charging and, you know, making a profession out of coaching powerlifters till probably 2020. After I totaled 2175, I felt like I had something to offer to other lifters. And then after I totaled 2220 is when I really was like, okay, I've worked through a lot of adversity. I know I can help a good amount of people here. And so that's when I really dove all in, as far as the training people goes.
And how many are how do you structure this? I assume it's not one-to-one. So is it a crew that you work with, or crews that you work with?
Yeah. So I have, a lot of it it's kind of a mix of online and in person. I have a team of about 40 lifters, and they're all local. And so a lot of them did start out one-to-one, just as personal training clients, right? That just wanted to get in shape, get stronger. And I was able to talk them into the sport of powerlifting, and they fell in love. And so I've got about a team of about 40 lifters, and I will program, let's say, like, if I'm working with them in person, I'll do 2 sessions with them, and then they'll do 2 on their own. And so it might be where I'm doing a max effort lower with them, and then a dynamic lower with them. And then they have the 2 on their own.
Right now, is this one-to-one, or are they in a group?
No, that's one-to-one.
Okay.
And we get it done, you know, the way that I want it done.
Yeah.
And I make that's kind of the point of the in-person this is how your dynamic day should be ran. This is how your max effort day should be ran. This is the pace we want. And I'll do that as long as they want to, but my goal is for them to not need me there. I want them to be able to do it on their own. And through doing that, again, like I said, I was able to get about 40 people, and I created a team, you know, so they could be a part of something, introduced everybody. And then I started making it to where, like, okay, you know, y'all are all doing max effort work on Monday. Y'all should kind of find a time that you can train together, right? And let's get a crew going with this. And so I kind of maneuvered everybody to where, you know, these 4 guys are training together on Monday nights. These two girls are training together on Tuesdays. And so they've kind of created their own crews out of the team. And working in the gym all day long, I was able to kind of facilitate that and guide them and watch them. And then I just opened up my own gym. So now we all moved over there, and now I'm there all day, and I can run the crews basically.
Yeah. So are you, for that max effort exercise, are you there kind of up their ass, and then maybe on the supplemental, then just here's your accessories, go do those. And then they're kind of on their own for those. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. And if I'll see, if I look over and somebody's not giving it what they should be on that quad extension machine, right? Whatever it is. And I'm there, and I can tell them, like, hey, quit pussyfooting around. I want that harder, Yeah,
but the main shit, you're there for the
main
technical cues. And
I'm
all
there.
that stuff.
Yep. And I think that's a big part of what I like to do. I like being there in person. I like wrapping the knees. I like, giving the cues, helping them out on the pick, helping the little things that you need to be there for in person to make a difference for, right? Like right before you get under that squat bar, there's something that I know I can tell you that's going to get your mind right to hit that lift. And it's like I'm a part of the, it's like I'm their training partner, just because I might not be lifting, I'm the training partner on that day for the entire crew.
Yeah. I need to use the restroom again.
Hey guys, Matt Goodwin, EliteFTS.com. Just doing a little spot here to let you guys know the annual equipment sale will be starting this Thursday, November 16th. It'll run through November 23rd. That's it. Those are the dates. Nothing extra. We're going to do 15% off all the equipment. Contact me directly, Nate Harvey, Chris Bartle. Check the link below. You can reach us directly. You can call, you can email, you can text message, hit us on Instagram, hit us on Facebook. We're here to help you guys out. So if you see something, you get stuck in the cart, give us a call. Remember, November 16th through the 23rd.
One of the best ways that you can support the podcast and your training is to join the crew. When you join the crew, you get an extra crew cast podcast every single month. You also get access to our Discord, which has a training Q&A with Team Elite FTS members. You get form checks. You can upload any of your training footage and have your lifts diagnosed, sometimes within minutes, by multiple people. Access to close to 30 different ebooks, training logs, and first sign up access to our weekend training retreats, train your ass off, and other events that we do. Biggest takeaways from that, though, what people enjoy the most and get the most out of is the training Q&A and the form checks, as well as the extra podcast. Hey guys, I'm back in the gym with another limited edition apparel drop. This is the new Live, Learn, Pass On shirt. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about our cambered grip American cable attachment. This attachment has 4 grips and it's cambered. So when you flip it, it actually becomes 8 grips. And if you turn it upside down, there's actually 16. This is one of our most used cable attachments out in the gym. Even got that full range of motion. We got a second limited edition drop this month as well. Head over to EliteFTS.com, pick up the shirt, pick up the cable attachments, and we'll see you next time.
Matt with EliteFTS here at the Armory in Columbus, Ohio. This is a new build, beautiful facility. Should be opening up around November 1st, 2023. Looking at the posterior chain developer, signature version. It's going to have the logo panels on there. Reverse hypers, you can do glute ham raiser, back raise, any kind of posterior chain movement you want to do on this piece. This is really good. The best thing about this, so you just step down on the release, adjust it. So it makes it really easy to adjust these, no pop pins or anything of those sorts. So this is the signature posterior chain developer by EliteFTS.com.
We're back. I want to lead into, because you're coaching lifters in person, the question I have is, what are the most common issues that you see with newer lifters that come in, regardless of their age?
Okay. I think a lot of the newer lifters that come in, they want to go straight into powerlifting specific training maybe, and they don't really want to take the time to, I don't want to say bodybuild, but build up their bodies, through accessory training and stuff. Before I started powerlifting, I wanted to be big and strong. So I had a good foundation of muscle prior to starting my powerlifting journey. And so a lot of people will come in not only new to powerlifting, but new to working out in general. And so with them, I think a lot of it is letting them know, like, hey, we're going to build your squat, bench, deadlift. It's going to get strong, but it's going to get strong by doing a lot of the other shit too, like just putting more muscle and size on you is going to increase your squat, bench, and deadlift at this point. So that's a problem I have or see. And then that delayed kind of, with the newer lifters, I think, at least the ones that I work with, will think after one training cycle, they should be able to hit a certain number. And sometimes it just doesn't happen. And so knowing that it's going to take multiple training cycles to hit to hit the numbers that you want, or knowing that the purpose of the training cycle at this point is to get you ready for the next training cycle to hit the number that you want. Not, not looking at it as a 4 or 8 or 12 week, but look at it as a 6 month to a year plan versus this short-term window that you've put yourself in, so that's kind of one of the issues that I have with the newer people that I see.
What about are they willing to take time to just work technique?
They are because I make them. And that's a lot of where that dynamic day can come in. And when I'm there, and again, it's a lot of it's practice for that technique.
Yeah.
And we're not doing, with the newer type lifter, they're not going to work up to a max effort lift, and it's not going to be max effort because the motor pattern is not there to do that. A lot of times they just need to learn how to fucking bench press so that they can do that, eventually get to the max effort work. And so I don't really have issues with anybody not doing it because I'm there and I make them do it. And that's what they're there for. And what's nice is after that initial, because at first it feels like you're not getting stronger, when you're going through these technique changes and you're doing these things, there's a lot of times you get weaker to start. Right. And so for a newer lifter, it's kind of like, well, I just hit 315, before I started with you. Why am I working with 200 pounds right now?
Yeah.
And, so a lot of times it's just getting them to hang on long enough to see that we're increasing the ceiling of potential for them versus just increasing that number, right? Like if you got bad form and let's say you bench 315, I could probably get you to 365 with the same bad form, right? And you'll be happy and you're lifting more, but you might not get past 365 after that. Whereas if we fix your form and we fix your technique and we change some things now, you might not bench 315 the next 6-7 weeks that we're doing this, but eventually you will, and you'll be able to get past that 315, past the 365. And that's when it'll really click for them. Like, okay, yeah, it's one step back for 3 steps forward.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the hardest part, is getting them to say, okay, I'm just going to commit. I'm going to buy in. I'm going to just take this initial hit. And then when they see it work, then it's, then they're fully bought in and believe in the system and stuff. But
then you turn around and they're maxing out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, what's the conversation look like when you see that consistently?
Where they're maxing out when they shouldn't be?
Yeah. Yeah.
They do it. I let them do it. It's happened, right? There's nothing I can do. But I let them know that it will have an effect on the following training, the following week, the following month. I've had people where I've got them set up, and I tell them this, like, hey, this is we're not just looking at this week and next week. We're looking at 5 weeks down the road here. So what you do today is going to have an effect on what you do later on.
Yeah.
And by you maxing out or overshooting or doing what you did today, now we can't do what we wanted to do later on. Or if we do, that ceiling is now dropped. The potential for what we could have done is no longer there. And then they don't believe me, and there's, well, no, I'll be fine. And then it happens, and and it's like, and so usually it doesn't happen that often, because when it does happen, it does turn around and bite them in the ass. And a lot of times I kind of have to let it bite them in the ass so that they know, okay, I'm not going to go off program. I'm not going to, if I'm giving you a number and I say hit 330 for a single and it flies and you jump to 370 and it's a freaking grinder, and then the next week, you fail your lift, I kind of have to let that happen a lot of times so that they know, like, that's why you don't do that.
Yeah.
But it only happens a few times before you realize, like, okay, yeah, I don't want to miss that anymore.
Well, and if they're around other people doing it, they should be able to learn from watching the other people's, they should, be able to learn from watching the others' mistakes.
Yeah.
With what age range are most of them in that come to your gym?
So I've got, I think the youngest is, I want to say he's 17, 18 maybe. And then it goes all the way up to, I've got a powerlifter, she's in her 40s. I've got a guy in his 50s. I train him in the mornings. And so it's a wide range, but I'd say the majority are going to be around 22 to 35.
Okay.
So it's a wide range, but it's cool because they train together. And so it's like, they're completely different people. This guy has a wife and kids and family, and this girl's a student at, the college.
Yeah.
But they're training together, and it's cool. And they're pushing each other, and so it's cool to have them all together.
Now, you said you just opened your gym about a month ago. So how's it different than other gyms in your area?
So the gyms, and being from Houston, there's a lot of big gyms. It's a pretty big social media type scene. All the gyms around they're nice. They're fully stocked. They've got the combo racks. They've got the kilo plates, or the calibrated plates. And what they don't have is the environment and the camaraderie that I'm trying to create. Nobody trains together in these gyms. We have 10 combo racks at the last gym I was at. And I'd walk in and I'd see 10 people squatting right next to each other. A lot of them doing the same weight. And I just sit back and I look and I'm like, you guys, you would be so much better if you just squatted with that guy. You know what I mean? Like, just the interaction, the training with somebody, and just to see so many people not training together, doing the same movement, powerlifting in the same sport, is what I didn't want, And so, with my gym, I make everybody, everybody's training on that same monolift, I've got two of them, and the 18-year-old kid, he was in there the other day, and we had some big squats going on, and I said, hey, he was off to the side on a combo rack. I said, you need to come in here and you need to learn. You need to learn how this works. You need to learn where he wants his rack height. You need to learn, when do you put the weight on? When do you take it off? The little things that go into training with a crew, that can make it 10 times better, right? Those all have to be learned by being in a crew. And so that's what my gym is. And everybody's everybody's training partner. They don't have to like each other. I don't care if everybody's kumbaya, but I want them to train and try to make the other person train just as hard, and get better. And so that's what my gym is compared to everybody else. And I hold that, I have to hold that myself too, so I'm in there and I have anybody train with me, and I've selfishly created my own training partners that are in my own crew now. And so I kind of have to lead by example with all that, and it follows suit. And so the guy below me is going to do the same for the next guy below him and the guy below him. And it just creates a really good environment for strength.
Mm-hmm. How big is the place?
We are 2,300 square foot. So, it's pretty close. I mean, everybody's, 2,300 square foot. I'd say 2,000 square foot is the actual training, where you can train. So we got monoliths right next to each other. The combo racks are directly in front. The deadlift platforms are in the middle. So no matter what you do, you're training next to somebody, which is, people can get in the way of each other, but that's kind of the point. I want people to be together, talking shit and challenging each other. I want that kind of environment.
Is that what, obviously, if they're coming to you, the question is that what they're looking for? Is that what they expect when they come in at this point? You haven't been open that long, but that culture, that environment, do they know that's what they're coming to? Yeah.
And so at least in my community down in where I'm at in Houston, that's just how I've kind of always been in every gym I've been into. I've created that in a smaller section of the gym, right? I've created my own crew in every gym I've been in, and we've created that environment.
So how did you go about doing that, right? Because there's a lot of lifters that are out there that complain a lot, that there's nobody else in the area, there's nobody else lifting, they can't. I think it's personally because of lack of effort. Yeah. But how did you go about doing that each time that you've had to do it?
I found people that were lifting the same time as me, and if they're squatting, and a lot of times it just happened to be that I was the stronger person out of everybody in that time. And so I would be the one. I didn't expect anybody to come up to me, right? So I would go up to them and say, hey, are you squatting today? Yeah, well, come squat with me. Okay. And then we get to squatting together, and then when are you squatting again? Well, next week. Okay, be here on Monday. I'll squat on Monday. Okay. And then people see that when you start doing it in a gym. And then people, you see the same people every time. At 6 o'clock on Monday, you're going to see the same people at 6 o'clock every Monday. Yeah. More and more people will kind of start to gravitate towards that if they see it happening. And that's how I've done it. Just started with one person. I've been lucky enough, like I said, to have the 3 or 4 original people that I started with back at the warehouse gym, and people have just wanted to be a part of that, and just helping people, just helping people that don't want to maybe ask for help or see you, like they're just kind of scared. And if they do come up with a question, just help them. And then they know, like, okay, they're all pretty smart and helpful, and they're all pretty strong in this group. I want to be like that. And then that's when they kind of start navigating towards that and training with you. So
I think the first thing that you said is the most important. You had the self-awareness to know that other people are going to be intimidated by how big you are and how strong you are. So they're not going to come up to you, right? Because they're just going to assume you're a dickhead.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But if you go to them, then you open that door. Yeah. Where I think that's what happens in a lot of the cases where people can't find their crews. They're going in with their headphones on and self-absorbed and don't have self-awareness. And that's fine if that's what they want to do. Yeah, that's completely fine. Yeah. But sometimes that's not what they want to do. And they just, for some reason, expect like a stranger just to walk up when you got 800 pounds. Right. Hey, can I work in? Yeah. But it doesn't work like that.
Nobody's going to do that. Yeah. I would, I remember, like I said, I pulled out of that gym parking lot twice before I went in. And I know what it's like to be, intimidated or what it would feel like to ask somebody like that, And so I try and be the opposite. I'll seek you out and I'll ask you to, hey, come train with me, and it's always worked out. I've never had issues finding people to train with because there's always somebody who doesn't want to get stronger if you're in there, right? And if you can convince them that training together is going to make them stronger, most of the time they're going to come do it.
One of the topics that you had down here was the evolution of the sport. So how do you see how the sport has evolved since you've been in it? And where do you think it's going to go?
Well, it's blown up even from when I started, which, I'm still relatively new in this. I think that the numbers are incredible right now, right? The top numbers are insane. But I think, you know, I think it's easy for people to kind of see these top end numbers and think, oh, you know, I have to do that to power lift, right? And they start to see that they're not there in 2 to 3 years. And so there's a lot of people in the sport, but there's a awfully high turnover rate too, I believe. There's a lot of people that are coming in doing a meet or two and then they're done, right? And so I hope that the sport can retain more of these younger lifters that come into this and know that it's not a 2-year journey or a 3-year journey, but if you can do this for 10, 15 years, you're going to get really, really strong, and you could be one of those top guys that you see. But yeah, where I see the sport is just, it's incredible, the numbers that are being lifted right now. And the meets, you know, there's got these really high payout meets now, and the production value of all of these it's really cool. So I think it's definitely moving forward. I think that I would like to see a little more competition between the actual weight classes in some of these meets.
What do you mean?
So like, you go into these meets and there's a top prize for best lifter, male and female, right? Well, that's one person, but you could have some really, really good competition between the 242s and the 275s, and where they're not going to win best lifter, but there's some damn good lifters in here, right? And so I think if we could find a way to somehow up the ante for these weight classes in each competition, it would be cool. Like, you know, if you're paying $100 to do a meet and there's 10 275ers, you know, let's make all 10 of those 275ers that put that $100 in, let's put $50 of every 275 application fee into a 275 pot. First place at a 275 wins that pot.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
So now, not only is there competition between the best lifters, but now there's actual competition between the lifters in the meet itself. You know what I'm saying? So I think that would be a cool kind of shift for these bigger meets. You know, and again, it's hard to find a lot of money to do that, but this is the way that you could put up money without actually having to put up money. It's the lifter doing it.
What do you think would help with the retention of the newer lifters that are coming in?
It's a weird time because I think that social media is kind of, and I'm not bagging on social media, but I think that it's created you know, you see these people and it seems like they came out of nowhere and they're just really fucking strong. And I think that, you know, you get on your feet at any given minute and you're going to see an 800-900 pound squat. And people forget that you go to any gym and you're not going to see that. That's still not something you're going to see every day. Mm-hmm. And so I think that if the newer, younger lifters can realize that that's a 10-year goal, you know, that's something that is achievable. You can do that, but it's not going to happen in the 2 to 3 years. And that life can happen. You can deal with all that and still train and still be on a pursuit of these numbers. You don't have to give up powerlifting to do this, or you don't have to, you know, you can be on the back burner for a little bit and still powerlift and still come back and hit these numbers eventually. And I think that if the newer lifters can see that it's not all like that what you see on social media, you know, that maybe they'll be in it for the long haul a little bit more. I just think people see these big numbers and think, oh, I'm not there. I've been doing this for 2 to 3 years. This guy's only been doing it for 2 years. He's already here. You know, I might as well just not do it.
Yeah.
And I see it. I say that because I see it every day. You know, from when I started, which, like I said, it wasn't an eternity ago, but to when I started to now, I can't tell you how many people I've seen start, do a comp, do 2, maybe 3, and then they're done. They're completely out of the sport, not even training, a lot of them. And I just see it over and over and over again. And so I don't know if it's, like I said, I don't know if it's they're seeing these top numbers, or if they weren't really in it to be the best. Maybe they weren't in it to be the best that they could be from the start. And maybe that's why the turnover rate is a little higher. But that's what I can think, is hopefully they can just see, you do this long enough, eventually you're going to hit some pretty big numbers.
Yeah. I think that having, lack of benchmarks, if we'll use baseball as an example, which I didn't play, but you can fill in the gaps here, but I played football. So, I'll use football because that's what I know. You know, you have JV football, whatever, you know, but then you get into junior high, you know, your benchmark is to be able to start, right? Then to be able to, you know, then all of a sudden that benchmark changes. When you get into high school, then you're back down again. Then it's like, I want to get to this next level. I want to be able to start, you know, in high school. Then if you make it to college, you know, I want to be able to actually just play in college. Right. Then if you make it there, then can you start in college? And there's benchmarks along the way. And when I came in the sport, there was like a unifying classification system, which was the USPS, USPF. And there was like class 5, class 4, class 3, class 2, class 1, masters, which is kind of a weird name, and then elite. And so the process, that was one process. So like, and I want to be, you know, class 5, and I want to be class 1. And there are meets that were class 2 and below. Like I want to be able to lift in the meets that aren't class 2 and below. You know, when I get to the next one, and then there's state meet in nationals, where in wrestling you got, you know, local, right? Then you qualify for. So there's always something. There's a carrot,
something that you're pushing forward.
There's a carrot that's out there. So for the younger lifters, there really aren't any carrots, right? So I guess I would advise them, just once they do their first meet, go look and see where they rank in an open powerlifting. Don't filter the fuck out of it. Like, where you at in the open for that division. And even if it's like fucking 1875, gets to 1500, you know, find those classifications to be able to chip up, which kind of solves what you were talking about. Because you can't look, like when I was in junior high, yes, I would aspire to be like an NFL player, but I don't think I'm going to fucking play in the NFL. I just want to start. You know what I'm saying? So there was a check and balance to like a reality check. Like, dude, you're not going to play in the NFL at 14 years fucking old. You don't have the skills, you know, to be able to do that, and then kind of ground it down. You know, best case scenario, you have 1 or 2 feds, and then you have local meets that can qualify you for the state meet qualify you for regionals qualify you for national, and thus far, you know, and all we really have are open meets and pro meets. Well, I guess some federations, it does kind of do what we're talking about there, but it's so convoluted with all the different feds that, you know, and that becomes not even a topic worth discussing, because the lifters that are starting are going to do whatever meets are closest to them to do. Federations don't matter. Distance does. Right. So people can bitch all they want about that, but that's not the reality. But I think some kind of, you know, if they were to grasp that, you know, and that to me has always been a better grasp than a 200 bench, a 300 bench, a 400 bench, and all this other stuff. Because that's lifts. This is powerlifting. Right. And then they can get better. Right. And they can always, sometimes it's not easy, as you found out at 2175, but that becomes a different game. You know, to me, that's a more frustrating but fun game to solve. Right. Because the strength is there. The strength is probably there when you're peaked a total 2275 or 2300, but you got to display it. There's the game. Right. That's not the game for the younger lifters. So even when they see those big lifts, they don't understand what game they're playing.
It's a completely
different game. Totally fucking different.
Completely.
And if they knew that game, they probably don't want to do it. Right. Because it's more frustrating than they think it is. That's why they're posting it.
Yeah.
They're not
Exactly.
posting their shitty lifts.
Right.
And there's more of those than there
A
are
lot
the
more,
other.
yeah.
Yes. So staying on the topic of shitty lifts and shitty training days, what are some examples that you have of days that just sucked? Where you wanted to throw your belt, leave?
Man, there's been a lot of them. It's
It's hard to pick.
It's been a lot. Well, the ones that always get me is, I'll go and, like I said, I bench. Let's say I do 530 at a meet, right? And then 6 weeks later, I'll go and I'll get under 2 plates, and it feels like 1,000 fucking pounds, and I'm like, what the hell, man?
Mm-hmm.
Why? And it's you peak, and there's what's the other on the other end? It's gonna drop off. But those first few workouts back, at least for me, I'm always like, man, this fucking sucks. But yeah, you get through those. I've had, I remember once I was supposed to deadlift 700 pounds, and the gym we went to, this was, we were trying to find a gym to do this at. They had a deadlift bar for our upcoming meet. And we went to the first gym, and they didn't have any power bars, deadlift bars. It was just regular bars. And so, I had the whole crew there. So there was like 4 of us. We all drove up and pulled up, and then like, okay, well, fuck. So we went to another gym. We got there. They had the right shit we needed. So we started loading up the weight. Well, they had these big 45-pound plates, so you couldn't fit enough of the weight that you needed on there. So we worked up to, I think it was like 585 or 600, and you couldn't put any more weight on. So I'm like, motherfucker. So I unrack it and get in the car, and we drive to another gym. And so we find a gym finally that has the weight we need. And we go, and we get in there, and they have a bucket, and it looks like a bucket of chalk. It's baby powder. For some reason, I don't know why, but it was baby powder in the bucket. And so we do it, and we're like, oh shit, this is baby powder. And it's not a powerlifting gym, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I still don't know why.
I'm very confused right now.
I have no idea. And so we ended up putting straps on, and I ended up getting the lift that day and doing what I needed to do. But that was one of the most fucked training days I had. But I've been pretty good about, it's hard to have a bad training day in the conjugate system a lot of times, because you can pivot. And if I'm not ready to hit, you can always make it a good training day. I feel like, I can always, like we talked about earlier, make it a max triple, or I'll change the variation somehow to make it a PR that I've never had. Or I'll go PR the leg press the next, it's something I can usually always turn a training day into a good training day.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, though.
What's one of the most
easy to do with conjugate, I think.
Yeah. What's one of the most impressive things that you've seen strength wise in person? So in a gym or a meet?
Okay. I remember I was training at 24-Hour Fitness. I was younger, probably in high school. And do you know Anthony Clark, right?
Mm-hmm.
So his brother lived in my town, and they ran a supplement shop called G Power Supplements. And I'll never forget, I watched this man, Larry, his brother, walked in there, and he's in a stringer. He's fucking jacked, and he's talking on he's got a earpiece cell phone thing, and he's talking on it. And so the whole time he's talking, he's putting weights on the bar, and he's got 315, and he does like 10 reps. And I'm watching from like 10 rows back. I'm on like a tricep push down. And he just continues. He's talking. He throws 4 plates on, 5 plates on. I watch him put 6 plates on this bar, and it's just repping it out like it's nothing. And he's talking on the little fucking earpiece, racks his stuff and leaves. And that was, it always stuck with me. Just the power and control that he had with that weight is just, and he wasn't a crazy power lifter. He wasn't like his brother or anything. And it was really crazy to see for me.
Oh yeah. Well, plus it's a commercial gym.
Yeah, it was.
Right.
I still don't see. You know, I'm still yet to see that. There's a guy once. He came into the older gym we were at, and he, I think he was a prison guard, and he would take these really extended breaks of like 6 months, 7 months of no training at all. And he came in and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna work up, see what I can squat today." And he just starts throwing weight. He hits an 850-pound squat, just, you know, raw, no knees, nothing. He just squats it. And the next day he benches like 600 for 3. And I'm just sitting here like, and this is what I was like doing everything I fucking can. I'm like, this guy just hasn't touched a weight in 6 months. And he came in and just destroyed anything I did, you know?
There's a lot of those guys. Those guys suck.
Oh, man.
They don't compete though, so you don't have to worry about
I'm
them.
just like, motherfucker.
Yeah.
You know, that was really, that was impressive. And of course, I've been to the Pioneer meets and I've seen Dan Bell squatting crazy weights, and Shane, and all these really big fucking lifts are really cool to see. So I've seen a lot of impressive stuff, but yeah, those ones that just coming off the streets, it seems like, you hit these numbers, and it's just like, man.
When you were coming up, who were you following and trying to kind of shoot for?
So when I started, it was like, you know, Brandon Lilly at the time was really, really big. And he was a 308 guy, and he kind of got into the super heavies. And that's even from when I started, you know, it was like 240 pounds. I wanted to be big, you know, I wanted to be a 300-pound lifter. And so I was following guys like Brandon Lilly, Zahir, Eric Lillibridge, and that was like, they were the top guys when I started. And it was a weird, because I guess in a way they were kind of influencers themselves, right? But it didn't seem like they were trying to be, I guess, if that makes sense. They were just strong as fuck, and that was really, really cool to me. And I looked up to those guys and wanted to be like them when I was coming up.
I think guys like that are still out there.
Yeah.
You know, and they are influencers without knowing they're influencers. They're actually probably the real influencers.
Yeah.
You know, not the ones that say that they're influencers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because those people are the ones that are always going to attract the most attention.
Right.
Because they're more authentic, you know, with the posting, which is, we're in this weird age now where people are like purposely trying to be authentic.
Yeah.
Without being, you know,
so much that it's not authentic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's they don't understand that they just need to be themselves,
right,
to be authentic, but they don't want to be themselves because they don't think it's going to look authentic.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it's
which
weird.
Is not authentic.
No, not at all. Which is a weird ass fucking thing, but that's kind of what it is. But
yeah,
you know, if lifters look enough, especially online, because there's good and bad to everything. Those people are out there. You know, they're out there to follow, and you know, there's advice and education, all kinds of shit out there. It's a little bit, I don't think it's as difficult to navigate as what people say it is.
Yeah.
But you can see bullshit pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, even because I've tested this with, you can do it with your lifters, the younger ones too. You know, just ask them who's bullshit and who's not. You'll be surprised at how good their bullshit detector is.
Yeah.
They can tell pretty fucking quick.
Yeah.
You know, now there's some that will kind of, you know, trick them, but it's not as many.
Eventually, though, I think they all find out. You know?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They do. You know, after they're in it for a little while and training for a long enough period of time. Were there any topics that you want to discuss and bring up powerlifting?
I think one thing I wanted to.
Oh, actually, yeah. What do you have on your mind?
You know, when I was dealing with the joint stuff and the medical stuff, I could have very easily just taken what the first doctor said and gone in and got a scope and done all kinds of stuff, and it wouldn't have worked or helped.
Why didn't you?
Because I knew in my gut that something was wrong, you know, and I knew that I wanted a second opinion. I knew that I wanted to be in control of what was going to happen to me and my body. And so I think that, you know, you can take your health into your own hands as much as you can, right? Like, so when I got the MRI, I made sure I got the disc. I got the report from the person that read it. Because when the guy called me, he said, "Oh yeah, you're fine. It's just some overuse stuff." And I'm sitting here looking at the report, reading it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Did you even read any of this stuff? You didn't tell me anything that was on here." And so I think that, and that's, you know, they make it seem like you can't, but you can get that stuff, and you should. And if you're dealing with something like that, get the report, get the disc, shop around, you know, find somebody that's going to listen to you. Ideally find somebody that lifts, and find somebody that gives a shit, you know, because it can make a big difference. And I think that if you just take the time and a little bit of extra effort to seek out these people, and really make sure that they have your best interests and they'll look at you like you're a weightlifter. Oh, it's from lifting weights, or you just need to relax. You need to quit doing this, you know. It's very easy to say to somebody. So just make sure that, yeah, you know, you're getting the results yourself, get your hands on them, and take them to people that you trust.
Yeah, it's three times this happened to me before I actually did what you just said, is have the report before you go back to see the specialist.
Yeah.
Because 3 times for me over the period of years I was competing, they didn't have it.
Yeah.
It didn't get to them.
Yeah.
Right. So then I'm wasting their time. They're wasting my time. Then I got to come back again. So then I realized I can just, when I get the MRI, and this is going back a while, I could come in the next day and get the disc with the report. Now I'm sure it's not a disc anymore. It's probably,
they still give you a disc.
Right. Yeah. But I wanted that. So that way, when I go in the doc, I can read it like you said. And if I couldn't understand it, find somebody that can explain it to me.
Exactly.
And then when I go in and they say, "Oh, we didn't get it," like, well, here.
Yeah.
You know, here it is.
Yep.
Right. Because shit happens, you know, from that. On that same note, I would say, if possible, and if it's blood work, have the blood work before you're speaking to the physician, because you'll go in and then say the physician orders the blood work, you get the blood work, then they're going to call you and say, "This is up, this is up."
Yeah.
What the fuck is that? Like, what about all the other questions you may have, right? And then you're not even seeing the labs, right? Where, you know, Merrick Health kind of solves a lot of that because it's private pay, you know, but either way, even before I was with them, I was still private paying for labs, and then would go see the doctor and say, "Here's my labs."
Yeah.
I got to pay for them anyhow. Either way, I'm still paying.
But you have them.
But now we have them, so let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And then it's there, it's done. And it's just being a little more proactive.
Yeah.
Because it's so much better than getting a call 4 days later and say, "Oh, your cholesterol's fucking high." All right, but what about everything else? And how high?
Right.
What the fuck do you mean?
Yeah.
Right. So
on whose scale, you know?
Yes. And sometimes with like the MRIs, same case of yours. It's like, this isn't what this says.
Yeah.
Like, what you reading somebody else's fucking MRI?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Like, I don't think you read it.
Yeah, I don't think they did either, you know, and that kind of protects, you know, it's being a little more proactive because a lot of people will just boom, go. And then now they just got knee surgery that they probably didn't need, or back surgery or whatever it's going to be. And they can shop it around, but second opinions, third opinions, fourth opinion. I would keep looking until I found the opinion I wanted.
Yeah.
But
this one says I can lift, so I'm going to go to him.
I mean, if you go to enough, right, then
you'll get the answer you want.
Yeah. I mean, with the shoulder needing replaced, it was like 5 people. Then I'm like, okay, I probably believe that. Still didn't get it done, but the one thing I circled down here that we didn't get to were recovery modalities.
Okay, yeah.
What have you found playing around with those, and how do you implement those?
So, yeah, I implement them kind of like I do, you know, where I increase my body weight, drugs, and all that, right? I kind of do the same thing with the recovery modalities, and like ice baths are something that I really, really enjoy doing. You know, despite whatever the science and all that is, I know that they make me feel good. And when I feel good, I can train better, right? That's all I need to know. And so those are some, you know, ice baths is something that I can implement when I really need them in a peak or in a training cycle. And I notice a big effect if I don't do them year round, right? The ones that I like that actually work for me, you know, you got to put them in to train sometimes, but I try and keep those at bay as long as I can so that when I use them, they really, really seem to work. And so ice baths is a huge one for me. And specifically, I like the cold to heat if I can, right? So like now I can go out to my apartment pool. We've got a hot tub. So sometimes that water will get down to 50, 40 degrees. I can get in that and then go straight into the hot tub, and I can switch that on and off. In the summer, we'll get together and we'll do, you know, cold plunges in the big old tub. And I'll do that, you know, kind of in between my max effort days, right? So if max effort Monday, max effort Wednesday, I could do that on a Tuesday. I could do that on a Thursday. And again, it seems to really, it feels good on my knees when they're swollen. It feels good on my joints, and it feels good on my whole body and allows me to train. Another thing is just kind of finding stress relievers. I think it can be a recovery modality.
What do you mean by stress reliever?
So like
cigars,
like cigars,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like a cigar is not going to make me a stronger power lifter, but what it will do is give me an hour out of my day that I am not worrying about something. I'm forced to slow down. I'm forced to, you know, I don't want to say meditate, but it's kind of like, you know, you're just forced to stop and kind of be in the moment. And I think finding things like that have a huge part in training. The less stress that you can have, the better your training is going to be, the better your recovery is going to be. And something like a cigar, or whether it's going for walks or, you know, whatever it is, I think finding those things and implementing them can really, really help the training. And so, yeah, cigars, ice baths, massage work. I like to get, especially when I'm in prep, like in a contest prep, 10 weeks or something. I'll use a massage therapist, like a guy named Kyle. And, you know, it might be every other week I'll go in and just get a tune up, you know, and just, is it really doing anything? Is it making me a better lifter? I don't know, but it feels fucking good. And I feel better afterwards, which allows me to train harder.
Is there any specific day that you place that?
Yeah. So again, if we just doing the typical Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, I will get those done ideally Saturday after my session, so that I can have a full day Saturday, full day Sunday, and then I can train Monday. Or I'll do like a lower body specific on Tuesday, right? The day after my Monday. And then maybe Thursday I can do a light upper body massage work. I never like to do it the day of or the day before. And I'm not going, if you keep up with it, they don't have to go very hard. And so it's just, like I said, it's a little tune up. But yeah, I like them 24, 48 hours prior to that muscle that you're working. That seems to be the best. A lot of times I've done it where it's the day before. I've been a little too loose going into that session, you know, and that's never a good thing. And with the way I squat and my stance and everything, I kind of like to be tight in the hips and stuff. So
if those are the modalities that you're using before the meet, which ones do you try to experiment with in the off season, or are you looking to experiment with in this next off season?
Yeah, I'll keep those in because I know that those work for me, right? So I have those set. I've been curious to try some of the like the E-stem stuff, you know, for some on my hamstrings and things like that. One thing though that, you know, I'm training that my David has me doing is I'm training 5 to 6 days a week now with what normally would be kind of a GPP day, is kind of those like single leg days and box jump days. And that has been really beneficial in my recovery as well, just in keeping me loose.
Do they fall after the day after your squat day?
Yeah.
So then it will be single leg work. So
yeah, just like a normal, like when I'm running straight conjugates, Monday max effort, Tuesday would be lower GPP. And so it'd be the exact same. That would fall into like that.
Yeah.
So
I call that active rest, active recovery.
Yeah. And it feels, you feel like shit going in.
Yeah.
And then you feel great when you leave. And I tend to get warmed up faster the next session because I've been moving. So that's
now
the difference.
Explain a little bit about the load of the weights that you're going to be using on that day.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're saying single leg shit, I assume this is not going to failure. It's not loaded.
No, it's like if I'm doing, with the way that I'm training now, I'll hit my main stuff on the Monday, the heavy hard accessories after that. And then the second day would be, if I'm doing a conjugate GPP, the single leg stuff. Yeah. It's just working the weakness. You don't have to load up 10 plates on a single leg press to get what you need to get done, especially if you suck at it like I do, right? So I only need a couple plates and I'm burning it 8 to 10 reps. So I'm not going to failure. I'm not being a pussy about it, but I'm getting good quality work in, right? And again, that's kind of comes with, you're going to go too hard a couple of times and you're going to know that you went too hard when you don't feel recovered the next day. And it just kind of takes some trial and error with that, I think, of knowing, okay, yeah, I pushed that too hard.
Well, another way to look at that too is on that day, you can work some of the stiffness out from that preceding day, which is a huge thing for recovery as well.
Yeah.
But now we're getting into the extra workouts a la, West Side Barbell, where for a lot of people, these end up being full blown fucking training sessions that you just warned against, because now that becomes something you have to recover from.
Yeah.
That's not really helping your recovery.
And I've fallen into that trap of, for me, it was really hard to go into the gym and not just go fucking balls out. I just felt like I wasn't doing enough. So yeah, some of those GPP days, they would turn into training sessions and they would be counterproductive. With,
you being in the gym all day training clients, and now it's going to be even more so because you own the place. How do you purposely create space between working with them and your own session? For instance, do you leave, eat, and come back, or do you just roll straight into it?
So yeah, typically if I'm there all day and I've got a session, let's say I'm going to heavy squat session, right? Yeah, I will leave, I'll eat, I'll come back, and then I'll roll into the squat session. But I'll time it to where I'm squatting with my guys, right? So that they're doing their thing, but I'm with them and we're training together.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the benefit of all this, is now I've got training partners, all the time. And but yeah, I do kind of have to step away a little bit just so that I can get into that zone of going into the gym to train, not going into the gym to work.
I've always been interested on how people do that, right? Because you got to reset.
You do.
And then come in the gym and like a different person.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be that person when you're training clients. That's for fucking sure.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have to leave and kind of get out of work mode.
Yeah.
And go into, okay, I'm training.
Yeah. Were there any other topics?
No, I think that's it, man.
Any final thoughts?
No, I appreciate you having me out here, man. This has been a lifelong dream since I've started this, to come out to Elite, and it's really cool being here. So I appreciate you having me.
One of your notes you had in there was you wanted to express the importance of, giving back and helping other lifters.
Yeah.
So why do you feel that way? And what would you recommend people do to be able to do that?
I think if you care about the sport and you care about powerlifting and what your idea of that is, I think the only way to get to that is to create it by what's around you. And so if I want the camaraderie and I want the shit talking and I want the family feel kind of in my gym of everybody's in this together, then I've got to create that. And I do that by helping people feel that, by helping people become a part of that. And I think we all can do that in your own community, in your own gym, right? And so instead of I think it's big. Instead of trying to, it's great to help online and help on social media and try and reach thousands of people, right? That's amazing. But I also think there can be a lot done just with the people right in front of you in your own town. You go to gym again, like I said, there's hundreds of people in there. If you could help 20 of those people over the course of a year, you've done some amazing things with the people that are actually around you that actually care. If you can give back in that and with the people around you and the community that you're in, it'll pay itself back tenfold because they'll be there for you, right? And so it's you give and you get with that, and you not only that, but you're building up your community to see what you want it to be, your powerlifting community. I was able to open up a gym with my entire vision of being a hardcore warehouse powerlifting gym because I started planting those seeds in my own community years and years ago. And so I think that if you're a lifter and you're and you have the status or you have the authority to kind of influence the people around you, I think you should. And any way you can, help out the younger guy or help out like I said, the guy that might be intimidated to talk to you or something. And you don't have to help him right off the bat. Just go talk to him. Just be like, hey, that's a good looking squat, man. That'll open the gate of, okay, he's just a normal guy. He's strong, but he's just a nice, normal guy, right? Now I can now if he does have a question, he can come to me because he knows, I'm a normal person. And then that in turn will make him better because he will come to me with those questions. And then he'll go to the next guy and then that guy, and so it'll just kind of domino effect. And if you do that right with the people in front of you, it can really make a big difference, I think. So
in a selfish way, it can make you a better lifter and coach too, because if you're always watching other people's technique,
yeah,
even if you're not telling them, you're reinforcing in your own head.
Always, yeah.
And then that streamlines into becoming a better lifter yourself.
Yeah. And when I was in respiratory school, I was a class tutor, and I wanted them to know it, but it 100% reinforced what I knew by teaching it to other people. And the same thing with powerlifting and helping somebody. You help somebody squat, you're going to feel better about your own squat, and you're reinforcing what you know by passing it on to him. So
what is the best way for people to reach you, follow you? So
you can reach me on Instagram. It's Logan. I guess it's just Logan Varner. I think it's just a regular ass handle. I don't think I have anything cool on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, reach me on there. I don't really mess with any of the other stuff. So follow me on there, and I answer usually every DM that gets sent my way. Whether it's a question about training, nutrition, anything, I try and help. So
I will have the link in the description. I want to thank you for coming out.
Yeah.
This was great. It's great speaking to you. Keep kicking ass.
Okay. Yeah.
And we'll talk again.
Cool,
We're
man.
done.
Thank you.
Hey guys, Matt Goodwin, EliteFTS.com. Just doing a little spot here to let you guys know the annual equipment sale will be starting this Thursday, November 16th. It'll run through November 23rd. That's it. Those are the dates. Nothing extra. We're going to do 15% off all the equipment. Contact me directly, Nate Harvey, Chris Bartle. Check the link below. You can reach us directly. You can call, you can email, you can text message, hit us on Instagram, hit us on Facebook. We're here to help you guys out. So if you see something, you get stuck in the cart, give us a call. Remember, November 16th through the 23rd.
One of the best ways that you can support the podcast and your training is to join the crew. When you join the crew, you get an extra crew cast podcast every single month. You also get access to our Discord, which has a training Q&A with Team Elite FTS members. You get form checks. You can upload any of your training footage and have your lifts diagnosed, sometimes within minutes, by multiple people. Access to close to 30 different ebooks, training logs, and first sign up access to our weekend training retreats, train your ass off, and other events that we do. Biggest takeaways from that, though, what people enjoy the most and get the most out of is the training Q&A and the form checks, as well as the extra podcast. Hey guys, I'm back in the gym with another limited edition apparel drop. This is the new Live, Learn, Pass On shirt. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about our cambered grip American cable attachment. This attachment has 4 grips and it's cambered. So when you flip it, it actually becomes 8 grips. And if you turn it upside down, there's actually 16. This is one of our most used cable attachments out in the gym. Even got that full range of motion. We got a second limited edition drop this month as well. Head over to EliteFTS.com, pick up the shirt, pick up the cable attachments, and we'll see you next time.
Matt with EliteFTS here at the Armory in Columbus, Ohio. This is a new build, beautiful facility. Should be opening up around November 1st, 2023. Looking at the posterior chain developer, signature version. It's going to have the logo panels on there. Reverse hypers, you can do glute ham raiser, back raise, any kind of posterior chain movement you want to do on this piece. This is really good. The best thing about this, so you just step down on the release, adjust it. So it makes it really easy to adjust these, no pop pins or anything of those sorts. So this is the signature posterior chain developer by EliteFTS.com.